welcome to the 408th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. We are currently in the midst of looking back at the classic appearances, the early appearances of the Hobgoblin, and exploring that whole big mystery of who the heck is the Hobgoblin. I mean, it was a long-running mystery, and just really fun and exciting comics. I'm enjoying them. I'm enjoying them more than a lot of the current comics, but that's another story. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. That is ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. Update. And I was just going to say, my throat is better, but there I just coughed up a little something. Gross. I'm still a little stuffed, so I think I must have caught some sort of cold, or who knows what's going on. I thought it was allergies, because usually around this time, I have no idea what's going on. And it's weird because I guarantee probably what's going to happen is in the middle of recording, I just randomly start getting congested. And it's so annoying. It's what the heck is going on? It's I'm not moving anywhere. Nothing has changed around me. And then all of a sudden, it's horrible. And just update before we get into anything, if anyone cares, I'm in the middle of summer. I'm not complete. It's not like I'm doing nothing, because I think I mentioned I'm moving classrooms. And man, there's just so much stuff to move, and I haven't even moved everything. I still have a bunch of stuff on my walls. I have a lot of non-math stuff on my walls, and principal kind of commented on that. Sorry. So I still have a lot of my comic and movie and whatever, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and all that stuff. I still have a lot of that to move over. And then my desk has so much stuff, and a lot of it is just getting rid of old papers, shredding or whatever. But that is not why you are here. So I'm not completely doing nothing all week. I've been going in the classroom and doing that. I've been also going to the theater. We're going to have 2 movie features again this week, and I think that might make up for the lack of TV. I've been kind of debating about this, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I almost feel more listeners. I kind of feel there's more of an interest in the movie feature than the TV shows, because TV shows can be hit or miss, and I'm going to continue covering Murderbot. I don't know if that's something that everyone wants to hear about, because Murderbot, what's that? And it's on Apple TV. I know not everyone has Apple TV, even though it's Severance and Silo. There's so many good shows. Long Way Round. The Ewan McGregor, if that's it's not something I would talk about on podcasts, but there's a bunch of Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman have a bunch of really cool, it's reality show, if you want to call it. It's just riding motorcycles, going different places, really cool. But there's a lot of stuff on Apple, but a lot of people don't have it because there's a million streaming things. I'm going to still talk about that. Alexander Skarsgård, it's interesting, and so you can hear about that. I'm still doing Star Wars episode by episode, and I had mentions well, maybe I'll do more than one, whatever, but it takes me longer to watch the TV shows, because I try to be so in depth and trying to remember everything, and then so with Star Wars, for me it's just wait, who is this person? And then I have to wait, what was their name again? And I'm trying to look wait, what was this guy, what was their first name? And so it just takes me longer, and we're going to have some shows coming up, so I'm just kind of letting it just be calm before, because we have Ironheart coming up, which is they're going to drop almost the whole thing, half of it at once, I don't even know. And then there's also Squid Game 3 is coming up, And I don't know how many of those I'll cover at once. And I'm starting to get congested. I can feel it already. I don't know how many Squid Games I'll cover at once. So we'll see how things go. But as far as a movie, because I haven't mentioned that, the main movie features, because it's newer, is 28 Years Later. So you can hear about the latest one of that. And I'll touch on 28 Days and 28 Weeks as well, because I just watched those this past week to just prepare myself for those, and made a little interesting discovery about one of them, which I will share. And then the second movie features Life of Chuck. So I was able to go and see that. Oh my God, I love that movie so much. Yeah, I definitely have to talk. It's such a weird, I can't even explain. Like, well, I will try to explain, but so you can hear about that. So let's get into the news. There's a lot of James Gunn news. I know he did like an interview with Entertainment Weekly. So, and of course people take the sound bites and they, repost and everything. That's what I always find interesting about reporting on the news. I mean, it almost seems like we have two different things. One, we're bombarded with rumors. There's people that are, and there are people who have, like, they're kind of like a track record. They seem to actually have some sources in that. But then we also get a lot of people that I just don't understand. It's like, are you literally just making things up? It's crazy. And like, there's one I'm going to address because it's kind of been shot down, but people have been talking about it. I don't understand. If you are straight up making up something, how are you okay with that? I mean, and if you even have some possible source that is like maybe telling you something that there's nothing exactly totally confirmed, and then you're just gonna say, okay, I'm gonna run with this just in case. It just seems crazy. Like, I can say they're gonna make a Catwoman movie. Eventually they probably will. I can say, yeah, sources tell me that they're thinking about it, but it's going to be down the line because they want to do Batman first and establish Gotham. It's just a bunch of crap. Anyone can say, because a lot of times it's like you're rolling the die, and it's like, okay, who are the hot actors or hot characters who has possibly maybe hinted or said something or might be open to doing something, and then you're just saying that Henry Cavill might do Marvel. Or, I could say, I mean, Daniel Craig is not going to do DC because he's going to do Marvel. Or, it's just stop. So then the other thing, besides rumors, we get, someone will do some big interview, or they'll do a podcast, or they'll do something, and people just like dissect it, and they'll just like joom, choom, choom, just like put these little things and create an entire post about it. Because, as you're probably aware, a lot of the outlets, they depend on page views, and rather than do one, here's the supersized James Gunn, here's everything that was said. It's like, no, he talked about Batman, he talked about Superman, he talked about crypto, he talked about Penguin, he talked about so it's like every little thing is a separate post. Even if there's not like a bunch of information, you build it up. Because a lot of times what I see when I do click on actual sources, and I hate to do it, but that being said, I'm not generating the source myself. So it's like, okay, I will give you that page click, whatever page view, and for this. But basically, it's like what a lot of people do. It's just like filler, because there's not a lot of information. So and I guess it's good practice, whatever. So a lot of times they tend to start off with, here's the background, here's what has been established or said or whatever. But a lot of times it's like, blah, blah, blah. Let's skip over the first like 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs because we already know all that. That's why we're clicking here. I just want this new little bit of information, which is usually like a sentence or two, a quote that someone said. And then they're like, well, this could mean this, or then, you speculate on it. And I'm glad I don't do that, or have to do that, I should say. So, with my website, Entertainment Fish, I'm paying, for the website. I'm paying for to host a website, and I'm paying for the domain name. And I'm not just paying for Entertainment Fish. I'm also paying for Gman from Heck.com for some silly reason. And they both go to the same place. But, I could try to do that, where I could try to take all these little bits and post it. But one, I don't have the time or the energy, or two. There's one and two combined there. And because I'm not like reporting to anyone, I'm not looking like, oh, I need to try to, why am I going on about this? I hope this is interesting. But, a lot of times, you need the page views to tell advertisers or whoever, hey, this is how many visitors or how many unique visitors or how many, page views we have. One, I don't even look at that half the time. And also, I don't really post that often just because I spend all my time focusing on the podcast. So to me, that's what's more important. And then I just mainly use the website to kind of help catalog the podcast, even though I had, gmanfromheck.podbean, whatever the URLs. So anyways, James Gunn, one interesting thing that he says, a very, very, very famous movie actor pitched an Elseworlds project. So someone, I guess they're working on the screenplay. So it's like, who could that be? And they just have an idea. And what I love about this is the fact that he's open to the idea. So it's like, and one of the speculation is, oh, maybe it's Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise just signed like a Warner Brothers, like whatever joint project thing, contract or something. So let's say it is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise goes up and it's like, hey, I want to do this, or I have this idea to whatever. And it could be like, maybe Tom Cruise, like, I want to be Superman, or I want to do, and you could do it elsewhere. So this is what I'm happy with. This idea is, let's go ahead and do. I think people can handle it, or and somehow you just let them know at the beginning that this is different. The fact that we had Joker and Suicide Squad, and we had Joker, in the Joker, two completely different universes. I don't think people were really confused. That's like, oh, is this the same thing where it had Abdul's tattoos? I think people can accept that. And plus the fact, you had Heath Ledger, rest in peace. You had him before. So I think people are, while those of you listening, I'm going to give you the credit. Us, we follow the stuff. We know like the ins and outs. We can understand that. But your general people that go to the movies, like when I go to, a lot of times I will see some of the same people. Or I think, not that I talked to them or anything, but there's some people I think so. It's like, oh, you guys are here again. I saw, while there's people that probably go to movies every week, like as often as I do, or almost whatever, they may or may not know the ins and out and follow all the news sites and stuff like that. But I think they would understand if you did it. You can have Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and then you can have the Spider-Verse movies, and no one's going to say like, wait, what's going on here? And then we even have the Spider-Man animated series, which is, again, also different. So I think that could be cool if we have something that's just totally different outside of the regular DC universe that they're trying to make. And what James Gunn said, it just depends on the screenplay. Like, he's like, if it's a masterpiece, I'll make it. If it's not a masterpiece, then no. So I had no pressure. And I guess the actor totally said, is like, I don't know if it's a masterpiece. We'll see, or something like that. So yeah, but James Gunn's thing has always been like, if there's a script, if there's no script, I'm not going to greenlight it. If there's a script and it's good, let's make it. And which is why Clayface is happening, before we get, anything Batman, because Mike Flanagan's like, hey, here's a screenplay or whatever, and he's like, wow, this is great. So, that's why we're getting that. As far as Clayface, so Clayface, it was announced Tom Reese Harris. I don't recall who that is. I'm a ding dong. I guess I just don't know. But he's going to be Clayface, and James Gunn said that the movie is probably going to be rated R. Yeah, obviously it's not official because the MPAA has to watch it and rate it or whatever. But he's like, it's pretty intense, so most likely it's going to be R, and that's cool as well. That it's not like let's try to cut it down to go for that PG-13. I still feel PG-13 is better because it's open to a bigger audience. That said, we've seen the rated R movies can be successful, but my fear is just I don't want kids trying to sneak in. because then that's when it becomes annoying or a problem. Because I tell you, like, I'll mention now in case I forget, but when I saw 28 years later, it's like maybe 10 minutes into the movie, and like maybe 4 guys came in, and I don't know if they bought tickets, but they just came in. But the thing is, it's like one guy was like on his phone, like I don't know if he's looking at his ticket trying to figure out where he was sitting, but he should have had a printed ticket if you know. But yeah, so I feel like if it's rated R, kids might want to try to sneak in, and it's a little harder these days because with people, at least at my theater, you're able to choose your seat. So if you come in, depending on when you come in, you might be sitting in someone else's seat. And I have seen sometimes like, oh, this row is kind of empty. I'll see people move, like they're going to move over because that's a better seat and whatever. So yeah, we'll see. But anyway, I'm glad that it's open, that let's not cut corners. This is what it calls for. And James Gunn and Peter Safran, they're excited about doing horror. And I think even mentioned going back to like the Belko experiment, which if you haven't seen that movie, definitely you should check that out. That's pretty cool. The Batman 2, there's a rumor that the script is going to be delivered Monday. So depending on when you listen to this, the script may have been delivered. We'll see. How do you even know that? Like, I don't even know where this news, I don't remember where this came from. But then the idea is the movie would start filming in January after Robert Pattinson wraps Dune. And that way it could still make the 2027, which is like, holy crap, that's like forever. The release date that they have planned. It's just crazy that it's taking so long, and it's unfortunate. But as I always say, let's not rush something if so it doesn't get compromised. What about Marvel TV? So the rumor, all these friggin' rumors, where the idea is, and again, there could be fact in this, or there could be a very, very logical guess, is that the Marvel TV shows are going to try to focus, because we know they're scaling back. We know that they're trying to focus on more on quality over quantity. I still want more, and I don't see why you can't have 3 projects in production because it's not like it's the same person working on everything. But whatever, it's not up to me. So the idea is that the Marvel TV shows are going to be more grounded and kind of more like the Netflix Marvel stuff. Instead of like if there's any like big ideas, kind of like a Secret Invasion, they'll save the bigger ideas for the movies. I get it. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, do we want everything, while Daredevil, even if we look at it like Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, I enjoyed all those shows, Punisher, all those. I don't want just shows that are like that. I want something like, what if I'm not a big fan of Marvel Cosmic, but then that by those, whatever description, we can't have something like that. You can't have something that's bigger because that's supposed to be a movie, yet the movies are like so tied up. Marvel is doing so few movies these days, and Spider-Man, I feel like that doesn't even count because that's Sony. So like, what is Marvel doing right now? They're doing a secret, Avengers, Doomsday, Avengers, Secret Wars. And that's it. Maybe X-Men's going to be starting up, so then you're going to have that stuff. So it's like, what if like there is going to be another, like, what if there was going to be a Ghost Rider project? Does that mean it's got to go into queue? It's got to wait? Or maybe they're saying, well, that could almost be a TV series. And like, what about Armor Wars? Because Sam Rockwell was talking. He said something like his character could be kind of like the Lex Luthor of Armor Wars. Are they going to make that? Because, originally it was going to be a TV show, a TV series, and then it was going to be a movie, and now it's like in limbo. And maybe it's not completely dead because he's talking about it again. But if they are going to make Armor Wars, when would that happen? That's like totally on the back burner. If Marvel's like, we're only going to do 2 movies a year or 1 movie a year, I don't think you should put a limit on it, and it's just whatever, whatever can happen. And yeah, I get you don't want to like overdo it, since some people are having comic book, superhero fatigue. I don't know. I don't understand. And speaking of Marvel, so this is one rumor I was talking about. There was a rumor, and I didn't even like when I saw it like earlier in the week. I was just like, yeah, whatever. But the rumor was Kevin Feige is leaving Marvel after Avengers: Secret Wars, and because he's been working on Marvel stuff forever, not forever, but he's been there. And how long does he want to do it for? How long does he want to do it? Does he want to move on to other stuff? Does he just want to like, hey, I'm ready to call it quits and retire and buy an island or whatever and just do what I want to do? So people are saying he should, because some people are like oh it would be a good idea because since Endgame he's run out of ideas. But with that, it's not like I mean I don't think we can credit Kevin Feige with everything ideas, because I'm sure like the Russos like, hey, we have this idea to do a Doomsday, whatever, Doctor Doom or something like that. Or was it Kevin Feige is like, hey, Russo brothers, do you want to do this Doomsday? I mean, it could be a little of both. I'm sure Kevin Feige, he has his plans where he wants to do this, and this, but with something like Thunderbolts, I mean, did he pitch that idea, or to someone like, hey, I mean, maybe it's a little of both? I'm sure he's got it very contained, like with this is phase 5 or 6 or whatever we're at. But anyways, the thing is, it was, and I will mention this. It was on Twitter, I guess this came up. It was MCU Source. That was the handle, this page that said that Kevin Feige is leaving. And again, some people are like, yeah, he should. Good riddance. He's done. Blah. But there's no source. So basically, they're saying this is fake. Marvel. I mean, and it's at the same time, it's not like Marvel's gonna be like, yes, Kevin Feige is leaving. If there are plans for that, he's not necessarily gonna announce it. Like if I was gonna. Well, that's not a good example, but like if I was going to stop teaching, it's not like I'm going to necessarily tell like, hey, like, okay, we got one more school year. I'm not going to be like come in August, like, hey kids, this is going to be my last year teaching. I mean, I guess when people are going to retire, that kind of is I don't know, but yeah, and some people were even like, what's the source? No reply, and. I'm sorry, I don't care if your post like explodes or whatever. You don't just run for the hills, and if people are, it's a good practice to reply. Otherwise, it was what you're too. I don't know. Just don't make up rumors. Oh, also with James Gunn, Sergeant Rock apparently is probably still underway. It's not like canceled like a lot of people are saying. It's just I think they ran into like some technical issues or whatever, so it's still somewhere. So possibly we'll see it. For me, I'm just like whatever. I don't care to see it if it happens or not. I'll probably watch it if it comes out, unless there's like 3 other movies that come out that week. We'll have to wait and see about that. Star Wars rumor, supposedly maybe. The Rey movie might have been put on hold, and I'm sure some people are probably like cheering for that because they're ridiculous. But I think the idea is that they're going to kind of like prioritize Sean Levy's Starfighter because maybe that's further along. Like I don't know if there's even a script for Rey, and that could be like James Gunn's thinking, where don't greenlight something unless there's a script. But with Starfighter, because we know it's going to be Ryan Gosling and Mia Goth, since Mikey Madison's not she's too good for Star Wars, I guess. So they're going to focus on like Starfighter, and then James Mangold. He's got I don't even know where that's at, like where it's at in terms of production, but I guess they're going to do focus more on that stuff. And then we got Mandalorian and Grogu, which is coming out. What's it, next year? So we'll see. They're also saying that they may start focusing on more standalone movies rather, which I mean that makes sense. Not everything needs to be like a trilogy, and especially unless you're gonna do like if you're gonna do like Star Wars Rey, yeah, let's go ahead. We could do a trilogy out of that. With just we're continuing the main saga, even if it's not Skywalker saga. Sort of is, but whatever. If you're gonna do something like Starfighter, just do a standalone movie. If it's awesome, if it's successful, and if people are willing, then yeah, let's talk about sequel. But it may not necessarily need a sequel. I still wish we had another Han Solo movie because that kind of was asking for a sequel. Did leave some things hanging, but we never saw that. So I'm kind of down with that. Is if there's a good story, not everything needs to be sequel. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. Speaking of sequels, apparently, I think it was Variety that talked about this. There's a Fantastic Four 2 sequel in the works, which makes sense, but to be like officially like quote unquote into works, I'm like, wow, because the first movie's not out yet, but I'm sure it's going to do well, and we got a good cast. They're probably going to be in either Doomsday or Secret Wars or whatever. So it makes sense, but I don't know. For some reason, I just didn't really think about it. Like, are we going to get a Thunderbolts 2? Maybe not with the name change and because it lost money or whatever. So yeah, I think that's interesting that they're talking about that. Jumping to comic books for a second. There's going to be. This is kind of weird. There's going to be a Spider-Man 94 sort of revival, except it's only going to be in comic books. With the success of X-Men 97, and I think it's Spider-Man 94. I could be wrong about that. Now it seems I think that's right. But if you're gonna, it's like is it just too hard, too much, or maybe because they're like, well, we have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Would it be weird to have two different animated Spider-Mans? Would that be confusing to people? I think again, people could handle it. But despite the success of X-Men 97, they're like, yeah, let's do, people have been wanting a Spider-Man 94. We're going to do it in comic book form. And it's going to be written by J.M. DeMatteis. Again, I'm getting stuffed up, so it's getting hard for me to say anything. So J.M. DeMatteis, who has a great track record, he's a great writer, he's going to be handling this. But what's interesting is John Semper. I don't know if it's John Semper Sr., John Semper. John Semper is a really nice guy. I've had the opportunity to interview him because he's worked on some of I think he the last time I talked to him was a Green Lantern movie he did, but he's done a lot of the DC animated stuff, and so he worked on Spider-Man, and he was not asked to anything. He wasn't even told that this was happening. So some people are saying like, oh, he's been robbed, he's been snubbed, and stuff like that. The one thing is, I'm trying to remember. Wait, didn't he also write the Cyborg comic when they did that? Because I may have interviewed him about that as well. So I guess the one question is he like a actual comic book writer? Because being a TV writer, it's a different thing. You have a different format of writing where, you're writing a script for an episode is different than writing a script for a comic. Just, pacing wise, it's got to be a different thing. I'm sure it's not that much, that too different. And, if you're a great writer, you can easily switch over between the two. But also, he probably doesn't currently have like a Marvel contract, and maybe J.M. DeMatteis has been doing stuff. It is weird. It's like I guess he just heard about it like online or whatever, and because why wouldn't you want to ask him? I hate to be the whole thing like, oh, they're robbing him, or they're just saying screw you, which maybe they are, and maybe it's not intentional. Maybe. It's just weird. that, like, why wouldn't you say, hey, we want to do this, do you want to be involved? Maybe they're looking at it as like, well, then we're gonna have to pay him. But I would think, what ideas do you have? You've probably thought about this over the years. I don't know. It sucks. Why can't everything just work out perfectly? So who knows? Karen Gillan, who was great in Life of Chuck, and she was asked about, are you ever going to play Nebula again? Because every once in a while, I start talking about, like the other day I was talking to IT guy, because he's like into comic movies, and we were talking about like Star-Lord. Are we going to see Star-Lord again? Are we going to see Guardians of the Galaxy? And I don't know if we'll actually see Guardians of the Galaxy, because Marvel might be like, well, even though it's Marvel property, Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of James Gunn's baby. He brought them to life on the big screen. If it wasn't for James Gunn, we probably wouldn't have had Guardians of the Galaxy. It would just been a whole different thing. Not saying that it's not an absolute, but he really spearheaded it, and was responsible for making that what it was. And if someone else would have done it, it could have been a whole different thing. So would we see Guardians of the Galaxy? And if we did, it'd be weird, because I think people are going to just really be comparing it to James Gunn. Unfairly, they'll be comparing that. I think we could have a totally different Guardians of the Galaxy, and it would be fine. Not everything has to be the same. And the way the third movie ended, we're at a totally different place, because it's pretty clear. Drax, he doesn't want to come back. Gamora is probably not going to come back, because she doesn't want to do the makeup and all that stuff. So you're not going to get them. Who knows? But we have Star-Lord. Chris Pratt is willing to do it. They said Star-Lord will return, but they didn't say Guardians of the Galaxy will return. So I think if we're going to see anything, it would be more Star-Lord driven versus Guardians of the Galaxy driven. But what about Nebula? Would Karen Gillan, because that requires some makeup and stuff like that. She's like, well, I can't comment on anything, because you just can't. Even if there's nothing to talk about, I don't think if you're working for Marvel, if you want to ever work for Marvel, I don't think you should even say, no, there's nothing planned right now, because you're feeding into that speculation. And which is something else that I want to talk, jumping back to James Gunn. But what she did say is never say never. So she's not saying that she won't do it. She's not going to say, oh yeah, I'm done with the makeup and I'm just going to move on. So she said, working at Marvel is a lot of fun, and she enjoyed doing these movies. So we may see her again, which could be cool. Now, going about the whole speculation thing and whatever. So James Gunn had talked about like social media stuff, and how he comments on rumors often. And part of it, he says, that the problem is when you do this, then it kind of feeds whoever, not necessarily just the trolls, but a lot of times, he'll say something, and then people will make more rumors out of that, even though, he's trying to squash rumors. And he says that he doesn't really want to give too much information out there because of that, because like every time he posts something, it's like it's another news article. But he did say that if it's going to hurt someone's feelings, like if there's like, oh, this director is not going to do this or whatever, he will jump in and is like, no, that's not true. So like, you don't know what you're talking about, type of thing. He also commented that while, he has his certain social media channels that he's active on, it's not, and this is what I don't think people understand. He's not necessarily the one posting that stuff. And what he clarified is those are his words, but he may not necessarily be sitting there, typing it in there. Click, 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 or whatever. And he says, like, often people will bring him, like, his people, whoever, will bring him, like, a question or that was brought up, that was online, and then he'll give his response, and then they'll post it, 2 days later, next day, or 5, whatever. So what I don't think people understand a lot of times where, sometimes I'll see, here's an example. So Motley Crue, Dolly Parton put out a collab for Home Sweet Home. And it's such a bizarre thing. And it's a weird project because I don't even know how involved Motley Crue is in this. Because when you listen to the song, I feel like they're just taking the original Home Sweet Home track and then putting in new Dolly Parton tracks on top of it, mixing it in, whatever, replacing parts or just combined and so forth. So obviously the Dolly Parton stuff is new. She had to have just recorded this. And they even released a music video, where you'll see Dolly Parton in a recording booth, recording it. The footage of every single footage of Vince Neil is from 1988, whatever, when the song came out. There's some Tommy Lee footage, and it's not all the original stuff from the original video. There's some newer stuff, but even the newer stuff could have been from 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I don't know. But my point is, and when it was, I saw it on Instagram, and there's some of the comments are oh, can the boys comment to the on my my reply? It would mean the world. I guarantee you that members of Motley Crue are probably not looking at the Instagram comments. They might check it to see what people are saying, but they are not. They probably don't even have the login for the Motley Crue Instagram account, because it has to be controlled. You don't want to have a social media account with millions of followers and have a dozen people, and it has to be contained. Because if you're saying, hey guys, you all have access to this so you can post whatever, it's just going to be a mess, and that's why band members have their own accounts with their own people running it. So if Motley Crue responds to your I'm sorry, I don't want to shatter anyone's illusion, if Motley Crue responds to your comment or something, or if they like a post that you did, chances are it's not the boys. It is not any of the current or former members of Motley Crue commenting. It's whoever is in charge of that social media channel. That's just how it goes. So a lot of times people think that, oh my gosh, so and so liked this. It's no, someone else did that. I think I remember when Hugh Jackman, he posted something on Twitter or something like that, but then people are like, wait, how could he post that when he's on a plane to Japan right now? And his person, whatever, posted something, and they didn't go, and yeah, now you can schedule, I don't think, maybe you couldn't do it back then, but yeah, so that's the social media thing. So it's not always James Gunn. So if James Gunn likes your response, your comment, it might not be James Gunn actually doing it. It might be whoever's in charge. Yeah, that's clever. I think James Gunn would approve of that. Click. That's just how it is. And then the last bit of, I'm ending with this. I'm ending with a rumor. I haven't even read anything. I just saw the headline, and then I saw a follow-up post where oh, people are commenting. The latest rumor, this is so silly, is, oh, we might see Dazzler. And, before it was Taylor Swift is going to be Dazzler. Taylor Swift's going to be Dazzler in Deadpool versus Wolverine, since, Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds are friends and all this. It didn't happen. So now the latest rumor is Sabrina Carpenter is going to play Dazzler. And of course, there's going to be some people who are yeah, that'd be great. And there's going to be people who are no, she's horrible, which they probably haven't even listened to a single song that she's put out. I haven't really listened to anything Sabrina Carpenter puts out, even though I do listen to female singers. I just haven't heard that type of music. It's a little too poppy for me. It's not my thing. That being said, I wouldn't knock her if she was cast, because what I will say, what I have seen her in is Girl Meets World back in the day. My daughter watched that show from time to time, so I caught a few episodes, and I think she did a really good job in that, and I felt that her character, I felt for her character, because her character, I think, from what I recall, didn't have, the father wasn't in the picture, and her mom like really struggled. So that's why her character hung out at I forget the other actress's name who was in Snowpiercer. So Rowan Blanchard, that's her name. So she, the Sabrina Carpenter character is always at her house and that. I would say Sabrina Carpenter probably can act. So it'd be different where, and using Taylor Swift, although, I mean, Taylor Swift has done some acting. I don't know. So let's not do stunt casting. And I don't think Marvel would do stunt casting. I think they're going to get someone who is good for the role. And I don't think Sabrina Carpenter, I mean, unless it's going to be a small role with like no commitments after, I don't think she's going to necessarily commit to something, like long term, like, oh, you have to appear in, 10 more movies or 5 more movies, because her main career is her music. And, she's, I guess, has a new album coming out. She's probably going to go on tour. I don't know if that's even been announced or whatever. She can't commit to doing a movie. I mean, she could if she really wanted to, but I doubt she would do that because that's not her main focus. The main focus is going to be the main focus for the news because there's nothing else to talk about. That's the news for the week. Oh my goodness. With comic books, I'm trying to remember if there's anything non-Marvel, DC, or Image that I read. I don't think Dynamite had anything this week, and I'm so far behind on so many things I need to get caught up on. At Image, what was interesting is, so G.I. Joe came out this week. But it's weird because it's not like on Image's main list, but it is. I mean, I did read it, so it is out, and Previews has it listed. So what issue is this? Number 8. Issue 8 came out. I enjoyed this issue. This is mainly a Baroness issue, and I find it kudos to Josh Williamson or whoever's idea was to have the Baroness on G.I. Joe. I thought it was like, it's like, why is she there? It's so weird. But I like the idea, and there's something about it because with the Baroness character, I never cared for her so much. I always felt that she's kind of like one-dimensional. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, okay, yeah, you're dating Destro, but then there's always like, what's the deal with her and Major Blood? There's like some I never really quite understood what was going on, and maybe is the Destro thing only in the comics? Was it not in the cartoon? I don't even know, but her being in G.I. Joe is interesting because here, she's just like, I just want to leave. I need to get out. It's like I'm here, the headquarters. It's like a prison, and she talks about because like Clutch had just left because Clutch is discovered there's a transformer posing as a Jeep, and he's like, yeah, we probably should keep that quiet. So he's not telling anyone, which is like, why aren't you telling anyone? But Baroness comments how he could just leave, but she can't. And then they're like, all right, fine. You can go. Because Duke's like, I'll have to, clear it with Hawk. But, because she's like, I just want 48 hours. That's it. But then what they let her go, she's about to get on her private jet and everything. CoverGirl is going with her. And I love the fact that they're using CoverGirl here. So, I think I mentioned with the last issue about Lady J and Flint, where it's like, I feel like, just trying to keep up with everything G.I. Joe with the main series and with this, I don't recall if anything's really been said about Lady J and Flint because they were in one of the silent issues. But what I like the fact that they're using CoverGirl because one, I don't feel like I really know that much about her, from the comics or the series. All I know is, she was a model. And now she's in G.I. Joe, which is, just like really bizarre thing. But I love the fact that they're really playing into that. And, here she comments like, yeah, she was a model. She flew around in private jets all the time. But I love it that she is so much more than just a model. And I don't mean that in a bad way is, yeah, that sounded horrible the way I said that. But I love the fact that they're like fleshing out her character, that she's able to do all this stuff and not just be, seen as, just a pretty face or whatever. So I think it's really, really cool. And because I don't really know much about her because, like I said, it's always Lady J and of course, Scarlet. They're like the main female characters that get all the spotlight. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. And yeah, so I enjoyed this issue. And basically, Major Blood, he's not happy with Baroness because I guess she's responsible for him losing his eye. So he wants to get revenge against her. All right, I'm trying to get a little more comfortable here. Hopefully, it's a good idea. We also had Exquisite Corpses #2. So this is James Tynion IV and Michael Walsh. And I love this series. I mentioned it when the first issue came out. And I want this to be like a Netflix show or Max show, something like a series. It's just, so the idea is, I think there's like five families? There's like there's like several ruling families. And they're the real people in charge, that are leading the United States. Has nothing to do with the government, president, all that stuff they're just puppets basically. So what they do, maybe it's not 5 because I think it's every 5 years they have a competition and basically, they'll kind of take over a small little town and they'll have these competitions going where, each family has some hired killer and who they have to basically hunt each other, and whoever is left standing, that family rules for the next whatever 5 years. So what is fascinating about this, and I mentioned this with the Ashcan issue in the first issue, where they put in all this time, like all these character designs and all these different killers, and they're gonna get like mowed down because you can't have all these different random killers and everything. Yeah, so it's definitely got to be more than five families. And it's just intriguing because it's like they kind of have these little mini backstories, at least in the description and everything like that. And then, the first time you see them actually in a comic, boom, they get chopped up or whatever. So I find that's really fascinating. And it's just, who knows what's going to happen. So I highly recommend this. Great writing, great art. So you should definitely check that out. And like I said, I'm sure this has to be made into something because it's just such a interesting idea. I was a Fashion School serial killer #3. I didn't get to that. I missed that. I didn't read that. I need to get caught up on Phantom Road because I'm really curious what the heck is going on there. And like I said before, I don't even remember the last issue that I read. Somehow I thought I missed a couple issues and the series ended. I thought it was like 8 issues or 10 issues, but no, it's still going. So that's cool. Walking Dead Deluxe, I need to get caught up on that. So maybe, I don't know. I would say it's summer. I should be able to get caught up, but we'll see if I can make that happen. At Marvel, I don't think there's anything else. I feel like there's something else. At Marvel, there's another Avengers versus Predator. 4th issue. The first issue that I read, it's Jonathan Hickman and Esad Ribic, working on a comic. It did seem interesting, but it didn't like totally grab my attention. And part of the thing is, I think I'm looking at it as, well, this is just for fun. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's the same thing with all the Godzilla comics, where I know they're not necessarily going to go anywhere. There's not going to be any lasting, long-term repercussions. That this is just meant to be like, hey, here's this like wacky story or entertaining story. Just have fun with it. But for me, it's hard because, the biggest struggle for me is reading all the comics during the week. A lot of times I'm scrambling trying to finish the last minute, like right before I need to record, and I still have like 5-10 comics to read or whatever, and then I'm trying to plow through them, and sometimes then I end up having to either skip something or just kind of like really like gloss over it, and then it just, I don't know, you lose a lot. So I have no idea how this is. The fact that Jonathan Hickman's doing it, I feel like that means something, because he's in demand, and he's writing a few other things, so there's got to be a reason that he must have a good idea, or just, I don't know. So if you were reading it, let me know. Maybe someday I'll read it when it's complete. We also had Amazing Spider-Man issue 6. So there's a more to follow up. Spider-Man has solved the Hobgoblin's scheme with the drugging people and all that. So that was okay. We got Spider-Man, his new job. He managed to keep his job despite being drugged and all that. So now we're seeing, he's still trying to pick up the pieces of his life. He's trying to balance his job. Things are still in the gray area between Shay, his sort of girlfriend. But then Tombstone has a message for Spider-Man, talks to Peter Parker, and there's like a new threat or something coming, and then Black Cat shows up. So like, what does that mean? Because Spider-Man is with he's got feelings for Shay, but she's even like, because he's like, oh, maybe we can do go to like trivia night at the bar or something like that. And she's like, well, I actually have a date. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, we're not like, we're not exclusive or anything, because he's had some issues, balancing private, Peter Parker life and Spider-Man. So then that means like, oh, well, hey, then maybe Spider-Man and Black Cat can have or whatever. So, but then at the end we are introduced to a new character, new villain, and I don't know. The way it is like, is this character like 8 feet tall? I don't know if it's just, yeah, because they did it like it was like a 2-page thing, like spread like sideways. I have no idea what to expect with this character. So hopefully it'll be good, because it's like a weird choice for Spider-Man. I don't know. Avengers number 27, One World Under Doom. So the new Masters of Evil? Masters of Evil, led by the Thinker, they've attacked was it Impossible City? I don't even remember what it's called now. So the Avengers base, and the Avengers are dealing with Doctor Doom in that. So it was just Sam Wilson and the city. They get basically overtaken by the new Masters of Evil, and while Sam Wilson is very formidable, he's Captain America, he is just one person against all these other people. And so, he's kind of a little in over his head. But he's been doing really well. But then Black Panther comes. Black Panther to the rescue is almost what it feels like. Because, Black Panther, he's been off in this other, like, dimension, whatever, fighting this other battle. And now he's back, which is cool. But, yeah, so we'll see. I'm not loving this story arc, but we'll see what's going to happen. Bring on the bad guys, Doom. Yeah, there's more. This is basically Doctor Doom and what's her name? Sister. I forgot who he's dealing with, but I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. But I'm just gonna say that there's stuff with. Yeah, it might be a spoiler. It's interesting with the cover. It's like, is that Ben Grimm? But he's not. I don't even think he's in this issue. So I'll spoil whatever, because I'm sure it's not that big of a deal. But it looks like Mephisto. There could be something. Yeah. But then this continues in Bring on the Bad Guys, Green Goblin, number 1. Okay. We'll see. This was fine. As far as a One World Under Doom, this wasn't horrible, but I'm just like so ready for this Doctor Doom stuff to be over. Okay, then we have Emma Frost, White Queen #1. And I don't know how I feel about this. So this is by Amy Chu. The art is Andrea DeVito, and it's a good comic. When I first saw it, I was like, wait, this is a flashback story, and obviously it should be obvious from the cover, because we have but see, even with that, the covers don't mean anything these days, because we have classic White Queen in her lingerie outfit, which is ridiculous, but she owns that. There's reasons for that, blah blah blah. But then I guess looking more carefully at the cover, we see like Wolverine, we see Storm in her classic costume, and we see like some Hellfire Club guards. So it's that right there should tell you like, oh, this is old story, whatever. So I guess that's my question, is like, okay, we're getting this classic Emma Frost thing from back in the day. I guess my question is why? Because this goes back into one of these things where is there going to be anything that comes out of this? Is there anything that we're going to notice that it's just I don't know, because whatever happens here, it's not like there's going to be anything like huge as a result from this, because we're seeing Emma Frost, she's in the inner circle. There's a lot of talk about Sebastian Shaw, and it's like, is she like reporting to him? Because yeah. So it's just, as I read it, I was like this is, I don't know where this is going. And it's not like everything has to have this like major agenda. And I'm sure people can I really like Emma Frost, and yeah, I want to see this, this chapter of her life, whatever this story. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm just too annoyingly hung up on the fact, like, what is the point of this? Where is this going to go? And what is going to be the result of this? So it's kind of weird reading this, and it's like, okay. But like I said, it held my interest. I ended up reading the whole issue, because a lot of times where I may start something and I'm like, yeah, and then I just start like skim next page, oh, what's happening here? Okay, next page. But I read the whole thing, so yeah. Fantastic Four fanfare. You were starting to get Fantastic Four stuff because the movie's coming out. Great, awesome. I loved Fantastic Four, but I didn't love this issue. We get Dinner and a Movie. This is by Jonathan Hickman and Dustin Weaver. So we got some quality people here. But yeah, it's just basically Reed made a theater in the Baxter Building, for them. But then they end up seeing like different. They're like actually involved with it, going to different dimensions and fighting like all these like kind of like horror characters. And it's weird because Sue has she basically has like Psycho Man's fear, doubt, hate thing. So it's like, what's going on here? Yeah. And then there is a Future Uncertain by John Tyler Christopher, which was weird. It was a little troubling when Reed's trying to figure out, because he's got this thing that can kind of predict like what's going to happen, but then it's like there's nothing. So it's like, wait, the future's uncertain. Does that mean something dire is going to happen? And then there's a Hide and Seeker by Mark Buckingham. Dave Stewart does the art. And this was supposed to be like a callback to Fantastic Four 144. And it was okay. I mean, something like this I kind of enjoy, because and it has a classic feel to it, and it's kind of like a side story that picks up from like one event. So like this, but this is again one of those things kind of where it's like nothing major is going to be a result of this, because especially if you're pinpointing it down to this past issue. We know what happens in the next issue, next 300 issues, whatever. But it was a little fun, which you should have that. So, but with all of these, there was nothing earth shattering. Godzilla versus Avengers #1. We've been having all these Godzilla, Spider-Man versus Godzilla, Avengers versus Godzilla. I am interested in this. I haven't read the other ones, but because didn't Godzilla kind of get the Venom symbiote? So I don't know what's happening here, and yeah, it's just weird. I don't know if this is the end, but hopefully those have been enjoyable. Gwenpool. I was looking at the cover. The tragic death of the original Gwenpool. And it looks like she's being stabbed twice by this new Gwenpool, which is supposedly the original Gwen Stacy. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what is going on here. It's we're going on dangerous territory, and it's basically, so one of the things that bothers me, I will say. The fact that we have original Gwen Stacy is now like this assassin is so wrong. I'll okay, fine. Let's see what are you going to do with this? This is nuts. This is crazy. This is bold. Let's see what happens. But then part of the problem is, I'm trying to remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Gwen Stacy ever know Peter was Spider-Man? I feel like she didn't, because Gwen did not like Spider-Man. She blamed Spider-Man for the death of her father, even though we know Spider-Man and Doc Ock were fighting on a building. One of Doc Ock's arms hits like a chimney or something like that. Some bricks go flying. Captain George Stacy, he sees the bricks are about to land on some little stupid kid standing in the street, picking his nose or whatever, eating an ice cream cone. He shoves them out of the way, and the bricks fall on him, leads to his death. But Captain Stacy did reveal to Spider-Man as he's dying that he knew, he figured out that Peter was Spider-Man and everything. But I don't think Gwen, I'm trying to remember if she ever knew. But here she's like, Peter, blah, 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 and all this. And she's saying it pretty loudly because Kate Bishop's there and she hears. Yeah, obviously Gwenpool knows who Spider-Man is because she knows everyone's secret identities and that because she's from outside the comic world. But when because Kate overhears Pete and she's like, Peter, it's like, I'm not even going there. Whatever. It's like, I don't even know what you're talking about because she assumes that they're talking about something else, like Spider-Man's Peter. What? So it just seems kind of weird. And it's like, okay, so where is this going? And why is Gwen now so angry? I mean, I guess killing, being killed will do that to you. But yeah. And then there's the fact of, what does this cover mean? Because I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Gwenpool is one of my favorite comic book characters at Marvel. It's one of my favorite Marvel characters. And I don't know if a large part of it has to do with the Guri hero art, but if you read the original Gwenpool, unbelievable Gwenpool, I love those stories and those issues. So I feel like Gwenpool has been tragically underused and left in limbo, and it's hard. What do you do with this character who does know all of Marvel's secrets? And a lot of people think she's just a little crazy, but you can't kill her off. So we'll see. Insurgent Iron Man. I'm not reading this. I don't even know what's going on here, and I don't even want to know. It's One World Under Doom. It just it feels weird. It's really weird not to be reading an Iron Man comic, And it's the same thing with Thor. It's like I'm not reading Thor, but it seems wrong. Then we have Jeff the Land Shark #1, and I'm a little confused with this. As I was reading this, I was like, wait, did I already read this? And maybe because I even looked online, it doesn't say this was a infinite whatever, because I don't. I mean, while I have Marvel Unlimited, and I know you have the Infinite Comics on there, I don't really read those because I don't have the time and I don't really think to look there. I should if I'm paying for Marvel Unlimited, but reading this. So this is by Kelly Thompson, and Kelly Thompson has done some great things with Gwenpool. I just want to say that. So Jeff the Land Shark, just written by Kelly Thompson. Art is Toki Tokoro, and I like the art here. It's not Guri Hero, but it's got a nice style to it. There's someone else. I don't. Maybe it's good that I don't remember because I don't want to just blast someone else. But there is someone else doing some art, and I didn't really like it as much. But what ends up happening here is Jeff is having a picnic in the park, and then he goes to leave. He sees Doctor Strange is leaving his Sanctum Sanctorum. So before the door shuts, he runs in, and he runs into the two snakes, which they crack me up. There's some like stones on the table. They're not infinities. Maybe are they infinity stones? Because we have infinity gems and infinity stones are different things, right? Jeff ends up I think he eats one, and then he ends up going on a mission. But I feel like I don't know if I've read this already or part of it. But I like Jeff the Land Shark, and I think you should read that. He's very cute. Moon Knight #9. I'm looking at that cover. It's like, wait, what's happening here? So we got Moon Knight going up against this dude. He's got this drug, super addictive drug called glitter, which is he's a piece of crap for making this, because it's basically like you take it once and you're immediately addicted to it. Moon Knight's trying to figure out how can we put a stop to this. And he wants to just defeat this guy who put him, basically kill Moon Knight, but it didn't stick. And so he wants to basically take down his operation because you can't just addict people to this drug, so you own them and everything. And so what's he gonna do? And there's some cool moments here. Just what Moon Knight says and how he approaches things. So we'll see where it's going to go. We have Power Man Timeless #4. I haven't been reading these, and I mentioned before, I don't know if I was clear, but there was a Timeless mini series or it was in the annuals where we saw these kind of future versions of different characters, and so Moon Knight was one of them, but I don't know why we're going back here. And like I said, I'm not reading this, so I don't know if there's something important here or whatever. This is written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly. I just can't speak to the thing. Bernard Chang is doing the art, which I really like Bernard as a person. He's one of the nicest guys, and I love his art. So, it's always a great combo when, you could just, when someone who has a lot of talent is also, kind and gracious and that. So I just, I don't know why, but hopefully it's fun and entertaining. Psylocke issue 8. I'm on the fence with this series. I really like Psylocke. The fact that we have Psylocke and we have Betsy as Captain Britain, that's weird, but it's good that we're able to investigate who is. So now the fact that Psylocke, Betsy lost the Psylocke name, which is kind of weird, but so now we're seeing Quanon, her past being explored and everything. It's interesting to see her just trying to trying to just live with everything, and while a lot of things, her past, she hasn't necessarily like shared like a lot of this stuff, so we're just seeing where this is going to go. It's kind of interesting, but I don't know. It's just, it is kind of weird, like because she has a new, what do you want to call it, someone who helps her out, like her character Devin helps her like with her credentials, like, oh, you need to access this or whatever. And then there's also John Greycrow, who Quanon is dating, or whatever you want to call it. They're in a relationship, so it's weird that she's doing stuff, but she's not seeking help from those who would move, whatever they say, move the earth to help her. So I don't know. Star Wars Dr. Aphra, Chaos Agent. I actually read this. I've read Dr. Aphra from time to time. I really like the character. I just couldn't like always commit, and I just didn't, read everything. With this, it's like, wait, Luke Skywalker's on a cover. What's going on here? This was, I don't know how you feel about how this issue ends and what this might mean, but I'm curious to see if we're gonna get more, like if this is an ongoing series. I haven't like looked up any information, but there's something interesting about Dr. Aphra's character, and I'll just say, so there's one thing that happens that I don't like how it happened, that it could just be like that easily like undone. And so basically, we have Dr. Aphra, she's always up to some sort of scheme, doing something and getting into trouble. So then she gets, basically, they're like, hey, your skills could be helpful, and maybe this could be good for you since you're in trouble. Yeah, so she basically goes on a mission with Luke. They've had some run-ins before. So yeah, it's interesting, and if it's a way to kind of redeem her character, great. But we'll see where this is going to go. Spider-Man Venomverse. I didn't read this. This is issue 2. I don't think I read the first issue. I'm curious about this Venom, or the Spider-Man weapon. I forget what this one's even called. But yeah, I didn't read that, so I don't know what's going on. Ultimates number 13. I'm just struggling with this. We're waiting for the maker. The maker is going to be back in, I think, 6 months now, they're saying, and Iron Man or Iron Lad, they're trying to set things up, get ready for that, because you have all the bad guys, plotting, doing their things, but we also have Wasp is like a double agent. And the fact that Wasp is just like spying anything, because like there's one point, maybe it's because and it's explained a little bit, where Iron Lad is just kind of like distracted, like focused on something, and he's like, oh, I didn't hear you come in the teleporter thing or whatever, and she's like, oh yeah, I make myself small, so it saves on resources and all that. But I would think that his systems would detect, oh, there's someone in the room listening, but I guess because she can make herself small, that it's just a little weird. And I just, I don't know, just the whole idea, like how they're trying to set themselves up. It's fine. I'm just not loving it. I don't know. West Coast Avengers number 8. So they're dealing with this Ultron mess, because Ultron was on her team, but there's like different aspects of Ultron, and and the fact that Firestar is not on the team, and then Killer Watt or whatever, he's got his own. He's got some problems of his own that he's gonna have to deal with. He's gonna have his hands full. But I'm really enjoying this, and it's weird. I love Jerry Duggan. I love his writing. But man, this is kind of like a dark, like a downer of a series, and I think that's what makes it interesting. This to see like what are they gonna do, and how are they gonna come back from this? Wolverine number 10. I actually read this. At first I was like, should I even bother with this? Because, I haven't been reading a lot of this. But then as I started, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I am curious because they're claiming Wolverine's mom is alive. But he's like, no, she died like over 100 years ago. Because, he got a letter from her. He goes to the Howlett ancestral home or whatever. It's all run down for some reason. And, there's a Typhoon, and I forget who was there. Some lame Marvel villains that I can't stand. And a lot of this is like Sabretooth is up to something. Even though I killed him, I cannot stand Sabretooth. Sabretooth, it's like, dude, you are such a loser. How all this time, all these decades, all you want to do is like go after Wolverine, and you just kill all these people, kill these innocent people that have nothing to do with anything. Oh, you're going to kill them to make Wolverine feel bad. But it's just like, is this how you get your jollies? I haven't said that phrase in such a long time. But it's like, is it because you're not capable of killing Wolverine, so you're just going to try to make his life miserable, or you don't want to kill him? You get off on making him miserable and killing people around him to make him feel bad. So it's just it's just so stupid. I mean, what is his motives? It's like he's just a loser. X-Men 618 kind of wraps up the current stuff with Cassandra Nova and these other characters like, oh, we're X-Men or whatever. And yeah, it was fine. Beast has an interesting. He gets someone makes a proposition to him, and so what's he gonna do? Because they're like, you're being wasted here. You should join us. And he's like, no, but they're like, no, you really, So we got to keep an eye on him. Is he gonna go Dark Beast again, or what's gonna happen? So I'm glad this is wrapped up. We'll see what's gonna happen next. At DC Comics, we had Absolute Flash number 4, and this is another one. I don't want to just be poo-pooing the Absolute Comics, every time. I am intrigued with this. It's definitely mixing things up. This is not like the regular Flash, and maybe that's part of what I'm struggling with, because it just seems so weird and different. Not necessarily weird, but it's like it's not necessarily what I would want from the Flash, and maybe the problem I'm having is I'm not digging the current Flash, so it's like I don't have a Flash comic that I want, and but it's not all about me, so that's fine. But it's weird because it's a different direction, and I don't like the fact that so we're focusing on Wally. Barry was doing some experiment, and Wally got pulled into it. Barry might be dead. Spoiler, we're 4 issues in. So it appears that he's dead. I don't think he's dead. Maybe he's trapped somewhere, because haven't we seen like him calling out to Wally? But is it just a dream? What's going on? And Wally's dad is working. He works for the army, so he's whatever dude, and he's not happy with what's going on. He doesn't approve. Didn't really approve of Wally hanging out with Barry. Then we have like some of the Flash's rogues have been sent to try to find Wally, and so it's like right off the bat they're going to know his secret identity once they figure out like what he can do and who he is or whatever. And then we have sort of Gorilla Grodd, but not really Gorilla Grodd, and I don't know. So it's just, I don't really know where this is going. We have Ralph Dibny in this issue, so we get to meet Absolute Ralph, and yeah, I don't know, but I'm sure there's a big plan. What's happening? I just wonder. I mean, I'm assuming there's like an Absolute editor who is seeing how, like, oh, we got Ralph Dibny here, so then that means we can't have Ralph suddenly pop up. And I mean, are they in the same universe? I guess that's the question. Has it ever been stated that all these characters are in the same universe? I would imagine they are,
because I would think that at some point they may want to try to do some sort of crossover. Like, could we see absolute Batman and absolute Superman and absolute Wonder Woman team up against someone? I don't know. But if so, then like we can't have Ralph Dibny all of a sudden an absolute Batman be a totally different character. So I don't know. Superman Unchained #2. I'm not crazy about this whole kryptonite situation. So big chunk of kryptonite came to Earth. Now this, some, I don't remember the nation. They got a huge, so basically it's like kryptonite is a new source of income, or new whatever. And it's, people want to buy it. Obviously people don't have good intentions. And we're already seeing that there's like kryptonite bullets and stuff like that. But Superman also developed a new power, which is weird. Being so exposed to kryptonite, so he can temporarily go gold and is able to block the effects of kryptonite, but it only lasts for like 3 minutes because it uses up all his solar energy or whatever. So then after that time, then he's weak because he's got to charge back up. But it seems like if you can hold off for 3 minutes and then you'll get your shot. So I don't know. Yeah. Then we had Wonder Woman #22. I do not understand what's going on in this series. I feel like it keeps jumping all over the place because I feel like there are stories where, because it's like Steve Trevor is dead. When did he die? I can't even remember that now. But then during was it Absolute Power? There's stuff with like Steve and Damian, they're infiltrating someplace. And I just feel like it's going back and forth where he's alive, he's dead, and where Wonder Woman's at. So it's just, I don't know. So like here we get the story. I don't understand the point of it. There's stuff with Steve and Wonder Woman, and it goes back to like the early days when they first like kind of got together. And okay, great, that's cool, but I don't know, what do we really gain from that? Just that Steve's like really into her, they like each other. I don't know. And then, then someone pops up on the last page. It's like talking about, it's like, where, what? I don't know. Detective Comics 1098. So this is continuing, Batman's, trying to save Penguin and Harvey Bullock. And yeah, it's okay. I'm not reading New Gods. I don't know what I'm missing. We're at issue 7. World's Finest. I did read this. And so here's another example. This is one, they're like flashback stories. So I feel like they can't do anything major here, although they did have a crossover. But what you look at what's happening here, you can't do anything majorly drastic. So we're getting these stories. It's well written because it's Mark Waid, but there's nothing like huge. So for me, it was enjoyable seeing the little like bickering banter between Bruce and Clark, seeing Commissioner Gordon and Perry White. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't read this issue, I wouldn't have necessarily missed anything. It was fun, but it wasn't a huge deal. Nightwing 127. So things are a mess in Bloodhaven, and it's weird because the Titans are no longer there, but there's a Titans tower that's like kind of abandoned. And the city's kind of a mess because Dick's half sister, who is the mayor, she agreed to this outside forcer bringing in all this like heavy artillery and stuff like that, and now she feels like she's in over her head, because she signed these contracts and something is going on. And yeah, Batman and Robin Year 1. This is good. I like this. It's interesting that basically was it Two-Face and Clayface are teaming up. They're trying to figure out like who Batman is. So, they're investigating all these potential suspects, but, it's still the early days where Batman's trying to keep Robin reined in and focused. And Crypto, the last dog of Krypton, issue 1. This is, I really feel bad about this. So, we see Crypto and the story is, I think it's, nothing is really changed in the beginning. The end kind of takes a twist. But basically what happens, we see like some of the last days of Krypton, and, Jor-El's working on, prototype ship. I guess the idea is, you need to test it out. Hey, come here, boy. And Crypto goes in there. Everything looks fine. And then the ship goes off course. Goes into a wormhole. So then poor Crypto, they send the family. It's not like a lab rat, which is horrible enough as it is. Put the family dog in a ship. It would be like if Doc Brown put Einstein in a DeLorean and then it blew up or something like that. So they put Crypto in this prototype ship. It goes up and then they lose contact with it. So they have no idea what happened to Crypto. Crypto does arrive on Earth, but it turns out he didn't because so he goes through a wormhole and there could be some time displacement because they're like, we don't know when or where he's going to end up. So that could explain, how can Superman have been on Earth for almost 30 years and Crypto's still around? And yeah, maybe Kryptonian dogs age differently. There's whatever, but it's not like he arrived in Smallville when Superboy was around. It turns out, according to this, that by Ryan North writing, someone else may have been Crypto's owner or whatever, companion earlier. I don't know. Then that was all I read. There's Titans number 24. I was going to read this because I'm curious what's going on with the Titans. I've been reading. We got Terra on the cover, so I'm like, obviously, I really don't know what's going on. I started, but then you had to do some other thing. And I was like, I got to start recording, so I didn't read that. There's also Zatanna and Catwoman, but that is going to be it. That is comic books for the week. All right. I don't know how we're so late. Star Wars, Andor, Season 2, Episode 10, Make It Stop. So we are 1 year later. We're now at BBY, Battle Before Yavin, or whatever, Battle Before Yavin, 1 year. So it's 1 year before. And I don't know if they did this before, but there's like a gonging. It's a Ferrex anvil gong. I'm trying to remember what exactly happened at Ferrex. I know, they've mentioned that a lot, and I should know, it's like a big deal for Andor, but is that the first planet that we saw him on? I don't know. But we see there's light flashing at the antique store in the back room. Clea comes in. Then we see that guy Lonnie Young, the Imperial spy that's the kind of like reluctantly working for Luthen. He walks by some stormtroopers. He looks like really nervous, so something's going on. Clea gets a blaster out of a hidden compartment. Luthen, he kind of gets stressed and he comes in. She's like, "Tell me you're ready." And he says that they'll meet at the old steps or something like that. And then she said that, there was construction last time, she went through there. And he's like, "Oh, we don't have time for alternatives." He's like, "Keep your distance." So she hands him a blaster, and she says that she will, if he will, I guess, keep your blaster or keep your distance. She's like, "Going like this is risky enough." She's just promise if it doesn't look perfect, you won't engage. And he's like, "I think we used up all the perfect." So Luthen goes out. Young Lonnie is like sitting at this bench. He tells Luthen, he's like, "You came." And Luthen's like, you rang the big bell. And the guy's like, "Well, I always wondered if it would work." He's like, "Dedra Meero contacted a friend of mine in Tactical last night. She's looking for a team to be put together for an operation in Coruscant. It's like, I think she's coming for you." And Luthen's like, "Why would your friend tell you this?" And he says that Meero's always bending the rules. He's like, he wanted to know if I thought it was safe to comply. He's like, "And you're not sure? So call him back, find out." young Lonnie's like, I can't. It's like, I'm burned. It's like, they'll be on me soon enough. I had to make a decision. He's like, what have you done? And Lonnie's like, I figured it out, everything. I know what we've been chasing. But first, we talk about safety. Promises were made. I have my wife and daughter tucked away for the moment, but I need you to tell me how you're going to get us out of Coruscant. And Luthen's like, tell me what you've done. And he's like, I have had Dedra Meero's code cert for a year now. Total access, her private storage. I knew if I told you, you'd push me to use it. But if she's onto you, it had to be done. He's like, you went into her files? He's like, I had a 2-hour window. And you still don't know if she's coming after me or not? And Lonnie's like, I didn't have time because I found something more critical, something huge. And Lonnie's like, so now we're bargaining? And Lonnie's like, I wasn't followed because if they knew what I found, they wouldn't have let me out of the building. I need safe passage, Luthen. He's like, I need it today. And Luthen's like, obviously. And then he's like, where? Where do we go? And Luthen's like, it depends. There's fast and there's good. How much time do we have? How hard will they come? And he's like, they'll come at this with everything they've got. Assume they're coming now. Then there's no time to play games. I need to know what we're talking about. You're not the only one who will be running. We're in this together. I need details. What are we going up against? And he's like, the Emperor's energy program is a lie. All of it. The rebellion on Gorman, it was a front from the start. A cover to strip mine the planet for some mineral that they need. They're not looking for partisans on Jeddah. They need the Kyber crystals. The crackdowns, the public order, the labor camps, Scarif. And Luthen's like, fronting for what? And Lonnie's like, a weapon. Orson Krennic's been building a secret weapon for over a decade. Colonel Yularen wasn't even told until a month ago. He's like, what kind of weapon? He's like, where will you take us? And then he's like, Yavin. And Lonnie's like, he's like, what is that? And Luthen's like, we'll be safe there, as safe as we can be. He's like, Yavin? And he's like, tell me about the weapon. So then Lonnie just kind of like shudders, so he's going to tell him. Then we see Luthen walk down some steps. There's like a concerned look on his face, so he must have been told like they're building a friggin' Death Star. And Lonnie's still at the bench. This other person has like some dog creature that gets like off leash, and it like runs up to Lonnie. But Lonnie is he sleeping, or did Luthen kill him? He has a blaster, so I think he killed him to tie up loose ends or whatever. Clea's like, Gorman, Scarif, Kyber, Krennic, Urso. Luthen's like, Galen Urso, Galen. And she's like, Engineer Galen Urso, super weapon, base in Scarif, fuel from Gorman, Kyber from Jeddah. And he's like, and she's like, ISB, Krennic, Galen Urso, and you know where to go? And she's like, no, I'm doing the comms. And Luthen's like, no, you're not. She's like, I'll be faster. Luthen's like, I'll do the burn. And she's like, Luthen, he's like, please don't argue. Just be waiting for me there. Go. So at the shop, Luthen stares like over the secret radio. He starts pouring some like corrosive liquid like over the ports and everything. He's just trying to like get rid of all the evidence. Then his doorbell chimes, while the stuff's still like smoking. So he goes to the front door, puts on a smile. It's Dedra Meero. And then she like turns and she like smiles. And she's like, yo, open. And Luthen's like, please join us. And Dedra's like, I passed here many times. I always wanted to come in. And Luthen's like, and here you are at last. So he extends his hands. Luthen Rael. And she's like, Dedra Meero. So calm here. Peaceful. And Luthen's like, can I tell you how much it pleases me to hear that? And she's like, she's looking around. She's like, is everything real? He's like, what a wise question. He chuckles. Forgery is the sad curse of antiquities. At the moment, only 2 pieces of questionable provenance in the gallery. Any guesses? He's like, have a look. He's like, they thought this was a fake. And she's like, what is it? It is a Natolian bleeder. It's like a dagger. It's like 60 centuries old, probably ceremonial. Only 3 others have been found. And she like pulls a blade out of the sheath. And she's like, and? Is it real? Luthen chuckles. We still don't know. The tension mounts. And she's like, all these pieces, do you own them all yourself? Luthen's like, most of it. I have a few items on consignment. She's like, in that case, I may have something for you. He's like, oh, it would have to be stunning. And Dedra's like, now I'm nervous. She's like, what if it's not? And Luthen's like, not what? And she's like, stunning. Luthen's like, well, you've come all this way. So she takes out this like cubicle piece of equipment. And she's like, a vintage Imperial Starpath unit. What do you think? And he just kind of stands there. And she's like, a little damaged perhaps, but I'd say it's held its value. And I have dreamt of this many or too many versions to remember. And here you are, all that time hiding in the shelter of an Imperial peace and quiet. And he's like, I've known you all along. Hardly seems fair. And she's like, you disgust me. And he's like, do you want to know why? And she's like, everything you stand for. He's like, freedom scares you. Freedom? You don't want freedom. You want chaos. Chaos for everyone but you. Ruin the galaxy and then run back to your ridiculous wig and little workshop. And Luthen's like, how confident you are. And she's like, we're done here. He's like, confident and terrified. She's like, the building is surrounded. You're finished. And Luthen's like, and you're too late. The rebellion isn't here anymore. It's flown away. It's everywhere now. There's a whole galaxy out there waiting to disgust you. And she's like, and soon you'll be telling us all about it. She puts a Imperial device back in her case, and she sees like smoke in the back room. So she's like, what have you done? She pulls out her blaster, and she aims it at his back. And she's like, turn around or be stunned. So his hand falls to his side. He has a old ceremonial dagger, but now it's covered with blood. Her eyes go wide as he drops it. And she's like, no. So he goes down, and she radios, all units engage. I need a med team, now. So several armed officers enter the front door, and like in the back, she's like, he's destroying evidence. The med team arrives. She's like, I need him alive. He can't die. So Luthen is put like on a hover gurney with this like big thing strapped to his chest. I guess it's like a ventilator or something. And he's put in like transport. Clea watches from the crowd. The other youngish like ISB guy, Hirt, I think his name, he asked Legret about this, some meeting getting called off, and Legret asks if he's heard, and the dude's like, about Young? He's, they got a word, 3 minutes ago, and Legret's like, no, it's like this thing with Miro, and then Partagaz yells out for Hirt, and he says to him, Miro has called a raid this morning, and it's gone badly. She believes she's found access. Or she did. He's apparently seriously wounded. And here he says, sir, you have every right to be upset. She's been warned about stepping over boundaries before. And here it's like, Young is dead. That is why I'm late. What? And he's like, he was killed. They just found him in a park across town. So then Partagaz gasps. At the antiquities shop, the blade is put in like an evidence bag. Other artifacts are scanned. I guess they check out a ship. Someone like prepares to try to look at like the smoking radio system. Clea is standing in like the middle of the safe house apartment, and it's a bit of a mess. So I guess it hasn't really been used in a while. She thinks back to when she like first met Luthen. I guess it's like some war planet. Luthen gets on a ship, and she has tears, and then she like looks at like in a hidden stash, and there's like weapons there. So in the flashback, Luthen takes a drink from a flask. There's like screams outside, and he whispers, he's like, make it stop. So Clea in the present puts her hair up, and then in the flashback, he's like, make it stop. Someone calls for him, like, Sergeant. He's like, you said to, or maybe he was a command, I don't remember what his rank was. So someone calls for him. He said he had to reload. Soldier leaves, and Clea is like hiding in a compartment, and she's a child. So then someone else calls for him, and he like tells her to be quiet. So in present, Clea heads out. In the flashback, others ask Luthen, like, what's he doing? And he said he had to reset something like that. He's like, I'll be right there. Then he checks on Clea when they leave, and he extends his hand to her. In the present, she continues walking somewhere. She looks at the Imperial building, like probably like where they must have him. It's like the hospital, because he's in a medical room. Dedra's like staring through a window, like out in the hall. When the medic comes out, she's like, when can I have him? And the medic's like, for what? Dedra says that she needs him for talking. And the medic's like, right now, that room is keeping him alive. And Dedra's like, this is an elevated ISB priority. I suggest you speak to your medical director about what is expected. We'll be taking command of this hallway. You need to clear everyone immediately. The medic's like, this floor is full. These are my patients. And Dedra's like, then I'm sure you'll do a better job moving them than we will. So Clea enters a hospital. She has like a bloody bandaged hand. We see her in a room. She like removed a bandage, so it's like fake. Then she uses this device to look like in like these like locker things, like whatever, because she took it from an apartment. I thought it was like some bomb or something like that, like a mine or something. But you put it on top of the door, then it just cracks the code on the locker type thing. So she looks at one, there's nothing. She puts it in the second one, there's like shoes and like uniforms or scrubs or something. So she puts them on. From a hallway, she can see like the ISB dudes like go up in an elevator to like some floor, because there's like glass windows you can see. There's like a courtyard in the middle and it just goes up and whatever. Dedra meets with some other guys, including Hirt, and he says that, everything's under control. And the guy's like, that's a bold statement. She's like, I expect to have him ready for interrogation by tomorrow night. But it's like, you're not a doctor, so how do you know that? And the guy's like, you waited for my day off? And she's like, I couldn't risk a leak. And he's like, how ironic. And she's like, I have a call into Partagaz. And here it's like, well, we'll have that forwarded to you. And she's like, what does that mean? He's like, you're under arrest, Dedra. She's like, but that's ridiculous. I have access. I found him. And here it's like, I came with an ISB marshal. And she's like, I have to talk to Partagaz. And here it's like, he sent me. And she's like, fine. So like, let's get this sorted. So Clea stands at this terminal thing when like a medic leaves like this patient like in a chair to do something. She moves forward and like takes the patient down the hall. In a flashback, we see like young Luthen and Clea like walking through the woods. They come to a small settlement. So he must have abandoned his post or something. He has like a backpack. He gave something to his like shopkeeper, and she says that she'll have to weigh it. And he's like, well, it's pure kilo. And he's like, it was my wife's. And the shopkeeper says that it's not a booming market right now, and she doubts that there's another dealer in the woods that even know how to price this. And Luthen's like, oh, my lucky day. And she's like, yeah, a tough piece to lay off. He's like, the grain is flawless. And then she's like, your wife know that you've got this? And then young Clea jumps in without skipping a beat. She's dead. Luthen's like, what's the offer? And the shopkeeper's like, what are you looking for? He's like, it's worth 40. And she gives him a look. He's like, I know I'll never get that out here. So 20. And she's like, I'll give you 7. Luthen scoffs. He's like, we both know what it's worth. And then she's like, well, right now it's worth 7. And then Clea's like, let's walk back. And Luthen says, let her counter. And she's like, 7. And Clea's like, forget it. And she's like, this is your daughter? Clea takes the thing from the shopkeeper, and Luthen's like, yes. And then the shopkeeper's like, has that got sentimental value? Because I could go up to 9. And Clea's like, 20. And then the shopkeeper's like, 10 if you smile. And she's like, 20. And then the shopkeeper's like, does she know how this works? Clea's like, we already have an offer for 15. And she's like, oh, who has done that? And she's like, Zool back by the gate. And she's like, Zool, she's a thief. And Clea's like, 20. And then the shopkeeper's like, 18's my max. And then Clea's like, sold, but no smile. Then she hands the money to Luthen. And outside, he tells her, he's like, well done. And Clea's like, am I your daughter now? And Luthen's like, when it's useful. And she's like, I have to think about that. Luthen's like, we'll be whoever we have to. It won't always be up to us. I'm Luthen now, and you're Clea. Everything else is up for grabs. And he's like, I didn't mean to upset you. She's like, I'm not upset, just hungry. So he holds up the money. He's like, let's eat. In the present, Clea takes the patient up the elevator. They exit. This guard's like, 17's as far as you go. And she's like, we're trying to get to the 19th floor. And the guard's like, no, it's special access only at this moment. Clea's like, her daughter's up there. And the guy's like, sorry, love. And then loudly, she's like, we'll check in down here. Then she's like, let them know. So a flashback, another shopkeeper. This time he's looking at this necklace and pendant. And he asks if Luthen cleaned this up. He's like, nice work. He's like, you know what it is? And Luthen's like, the Veronian victory necklace. And the guy's like, how'd you know to bring it here? And Luthen's like, I heard you collected. He looks at it again, like closely. Luthen's like, it bears the mark. The guy's like, any more where this came from? And Luthen's like, not today. Then there's a soldier yelling at people to get out of the way. He's like holding a blaster. Luthen's like, what's this? So the trooper, or he says the trooper ate a bolt the other night, the sniper, and they keep finding people who did it. And Clay's like, where are they taking them? The shopkeeper and Luthen exchanged a look. So we see people are like taken in chains. Others yell that, they're innocent. And Luthen tells a guy that he can have the thing for 80. And the dude's like, I can do 80. So Clea moves to like watch people. Luthen hisses, he's like, we're leaving. And she's like, I'm not. And he's like, there's nothing here for us. He's like, Clea. And he's like, you're on your own. And he starts walking. And so the people are lined up against the wall. It's like a firing squad. Stormtroopers shoot them. So Clea catches up with Luthen. And she's like, when do we start fighting back? And Luthen's like, we have. Clea's like, by walking away? Luthen says, we fight to win. That means we lose and lose and lose and lose until we're ready. All you know now is how much you hate. You bank that. You hide that. You keep it alive until you know what to do with it. And when I tell you to move, you move. He starts walking again. And he's like, yells. He's like, move. So present in the hospital, Clea creeps up the stairs. Trooper like comms. He's like, confirming we have the entire level on lockdown. So she moves about. She goes up another flight of stairs. And then a soldier tells her she has to turn back. It's like, there's no access here. And she's like, I was sent for Dr. Nash. And the guy's like, this unit is closed. But she has like a blaster behind like this big like medical data pad or whatever. She shoots him. So then she moves. She's on the level like across the way because she can see the through the glass, through the windows. So then she puts the blaster like at her back and she takes out this like little device. Flashback. She's like, how many more do you think there are? 50, maybe more. You're not eating. It's a beautiful place. And she's like, how long do we have? And Luthen's like, look around. And so they're like at like kind of like an outdoor restaurant or something like that. She's like, I knew you'd do this. And Luthen's like, look at where you are. She's like, you're backing out. And he's like, you need to pay attention. Life shows us what we stand to lose. Most people look away. We can't be like that. And she doesn't say anything. He's like, look at me. You need to accept what you're leaving behind. And she's like, all right, we're here. It's a pretty place. None of that matters right now. You're just being sad. And Luthen's like, I need to know you're making a choice. I lived most of my life without ever realizing that there was a possibility. And she's like, you're afraid. Luthen's like, I'm only afraid of what I'm doing to you. And she's like, I know what I want. So then he slides the device across the table. He's like, do it. And she's like, you think I won't? He's like, you have every right. And she looks at the others at like the different tables. And she's like, why are you doing this? He's like, because today it's real. And she's like, you promised. He's like, I lie. Get used to it. She reaches for the device and he puts his hand down. And he's like, don't. And then he pushes it. She like looks around. He hisses. He's like, look at me. And then there's an explosion like where she was looking before. People are screaming. He's like, and turn. So she can see where the explosion took place. And she kind of gasps. He's like, we'll be leaving now. We made our choice. So I'm not totally clear what that was about. I'm sure I should know, but whatever. In the present, she pushes a button and an explosion goes off like a couple buildings down. Stormtroopers rush off. So she moves like past them and they just ignore her because they're like going for the elevator or whatever. Then she takes out her blaster. She shoots this other stormtrooper like coming up to her, takes out this other dude, goes into Luthen's room, and she like closes the blinds on the windows type thing. And then she unhooks the big ventilator. There's like a beeping, then it stops. And she has a tear. She kisses his forehead, and then she leaves. And troopers come from like the other direction. There's a shot of like Luthen just lying on the bed, and then fade to black. What's interesting here, there's a couple things. One, there's no Andor in this episode. So this is all about Clea and Luthen. And what's interesting is we know that they've been, like working together. And, I always thought it was interesting because I always felt like she's working for him, but sometimes she gets a little snippy with him. And it's just like wow, because, Luthen seems to be the guy in charge. Then going with that, it's more not just that he's a guy in charge, but he basically kind of was her father. He kind of raised her in a way, even though I'm sure it wasn't as loving. There may have been some nice moments, but he seems like, he's just very cold and calculating, just, to get the job done or whatever. So it's just like, what kind of dynamic did they have, all this time? So it's interesting to see that it's not just like an employee, or whatever, that there's just this whole other layer to it. So now that he's gone, it's a big deal, and she had to take him out because he tried to kill himself, so they can't get any secrets, and then they took him away, and then she ended up having to finish what he started to make sure that they don't get anything out of him. So that's just kind of heavy. And then the other thing that's interesting is no Andor in this episode. So it's like, okay, we're in the final 3 episodes, and he's not even in this episode at all. So now we have 2 more to go, and now that there's no Luthen, it's like, what does that mean? Is she just going to take over and give him his next orders? So yeah, that was interesting. Okay, then Murderbot season 1 episode 5. So this. The show's moving along, and I'm digging that. So, I mentioned before the half-hour format. It's definitely progressing, and I like that they're just not messing around. So season 1 episode 5, Rogue War Tracker Infinite. So the crew's talking about how to help Sec Unit because he shot himself last time because he was compromised. He was programmed to kill them, and the only way to prevent that is for him to kill himself, to shoot himself. So you hear them, they're like, the med bay is not equipped for this. And, they have to get these wires out from the override device, like out of his socket or whatever in the back of his neck. There's still some little wires in there. So his readout says 36% performant reliability, hostile code detective. His eyes kind of flickered, and he's like, guess I'm not dead despite my best efforts. Now, how did I get here? So he tries replaying like the last events, that they need to kill him, that he will kill all of them in a few seconds, and then he shoots himself. So then it kind of plays out from there. They roll him over. Arata asks, if it's, and Mensa's like, no, we have to get it to the habitat, so see if we can fix it. And then he's like, fix me. He's like, why do you even bother to shoot myself? So they start to lift him. Rathy's like, oh, this thing's heavy, which is what I wondered. Then someone, I don't know if it was Arata or someone's like, it's not a thing, it's a person. But then Arata like freaks out. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't. This is just, it's really awful. And Mensa's like, Arata, grab a weapon. We still don't know what else is out there. Pinley yells that, someone's coming. Arata like shoots several times, but like hits like the base of this little mound where the person was on. And Pinley yells, she's like, what are you doing? And she's like, that's a Delta Fall uniform. So Arata yells, she's like, sorry. She's like, are you okay? And the person like jumped into some bushes or whatever. And they whimper. They're like, don't shoot. Please help me. So Mensa and Arata help her up. So it's a woman. And she's like, that Sec unit you just squished, it killed 2 of our units. And it did something to the other one. And then it started shooting everyone. Our Sec unit went rogue. They're like, wait, is that one alive? And Mensa's like, I don't know, but it will not hurt you. The Sec unit thinks, not unless you're stupid enough to take me to my repair cubicle and revive me, idiots. He's like, they were doing everything they could to bring me back online. That was fudging stupid. He's like, the moment I woke up, I'd killed them all. My system wouldn't reboot because of the tendrils the combat override module left in me. So then Baradwaj says that she can do the extraction, and he's like, good luck with that. So then the new person's like, oh, poop. And he's like, wait, who's that? So then later, I guess they're still in the hopper. And Mensa asks the new person what her name is, and she says Libibi. And Arata kind of struggles the name, and then she's like, oh, it's a beautiful name. And she's like, where are you from? And she's like, Industrial Junction 151523. And Arata's like, oh, that sounds nice. Mensa's like, sorry to ask, but do you have any idea whose Sec unit it was that attacked your habitat? And Libibi's like, no. She's like, I have no idea. She's like, so in order to save you, your Sec unit shot itself? Mensa nods, and Sec unit's like, yeah, that was pretty heroic. And she continues. She's like, our sec unit was just like, and she like imitates. And she's like, it's like an episode of Rogue War Tracker Infinite Tribulation. Sec unit like thinks he's like terrible show, and Rathy like makes a face, but Labibi's like, it's a great show. And Mensa's like, it wasn't its fault. The sec unit, it didn't go rogue. It was forced to attack your habitat. The question is why? And Labibi's like, I don't know. And she glances over at sec unit like lying on a cot. She's like, I didn't know they had faces. And Arata's like, yeah. And Labibi's like, I mean, to be honest, it's not unattractive. Arata's like, right. And Labibi's like, do you think it has a pee-pee? And Arata's like, I don't know. She's like, I think maybe you're in shock. And Labibi's like, I guess it doesn't really need one. Can you imagine if it did have one? If it could kind of go at any length it wanted, press the balls to vibrate, and it could kind of like turn or go in any sort of direction like a big worm. It's like, I don't know. And the others are just like staring at her. It's like, it's just something I can picture, but you probably haven't, thought about that. But maybe you have, I don't know. And Arata's like, no, I don't think I've ever thought about that. And sec unit's like, so glad I was unconscious for this part. So now he's sitting on a chair, and he's like, as usual, the humans were being messy and emotional. So Rathy says to Pinley, he's like, I think if we have a child, we should call it that. And Pinley's like, call it what? He's like, sec unit. And she's like, sec unit? He's like, yeah, kind of like a tribute. And then Pinley's like, who said anything about having a child? Sec unit's like, okay, this part was actually kind of entertaining. Rathy's like, that would be crazy. He's like, how do you both feel about having children? I mean, just because of all the, everything, right? He kind of makes you think. And Penny's like, yeah, no, it makes me think, but maybe not about starting a family. And he's like, I just didn't mean that. Like, what sec unit did. I think we should honor that. And Penny's like, sec unit is going to be fine. Then Baradwaj is ready to try taking a shot at sec unit. So I guess now they're back at their habitat. And he thinks, like, maybe this hippie actually knew what she was doing. So she has like gloves on to control these little pinchers that are like pulling up threads, like in the module thing, like left in its socket. Labibi's like, question, is that a good idea? What if you just fix it and then it just kills us all? And Rathy's like, then we have to risk it. He's like, this sec unit is our friend. And sec unit's like, debatable. And he's like, yeah, that's right. I'm friends with the sec unit. You're a corporation rim, so you probably wouldn't even like get it, Garathan's like, are we sure that this is the right thing to do? And sec unit thinks, he's like, sure it is, if you want to risk all getting slaughtered. And we see like that little short violent memory that he can't explain pop up. So Labibi is like, where are you people from? Pinley's like, Preservation Alliance. We're a non-corporate planet with a communal governing system. And Labibi's like, oh, neat. What are you doing in this poopy planet? Mensa's like, we have mineral and data options for this continent. Labibi's like, right. My bosses at Delphal, they used to call you guys the amateurs. Sec unit's like, pretty rude, but they weren't wrong. Only amateurs would risk their lives to save a sec unit. Then Baradwaj pulls out the last one, and he's like, fantastic. Now, remember to reboot me before you put me back online so I don't kill you all. But someone says, ready to reboot. And then someone's like, Garathan, it's like, I'm going to need you to plug into its system. And probably Mensa. She's like, track it for any bad code. And then sec unit's like, oh, no, he's going to do it? Fudge. He looks way too into it, or into this. So the camera zooms into his mind. We hear sec unit say, my job is to protect you from harm. And he like feels that something's wrong. He's like, be calm. So Garathan sits, I guess he's looking. Sec unit's displays as a standby mode, then his eyes open. He's like, wait a second. I'm out of med bay, and they're still alive. Nice. Baradwaj's like, it's awake. Sec unit thinks, he's like, looking at their horrible faces, I was glad I didn't murder them. And the camera pans to Labibi, mostly. So someone asks, why isn't it moving? Garathan says, because he had hub system immobilize it from the neck down. And Pinley's like, why? It's like, there's no danger. Mensa's like, what's wrong, Garathan? And he's like, as you know, I have been noticing some anomalies with the sec unit. And sec unit's like, uh-oh. And he's like, when I plugged into its system, uh-oh. The unit was already rogue. There's a slight pause. And he's like, it hacked its governor module. And Rathi's like, it's rogue. Second unit says, on the entertainment feed, this is what they call an oh poop moment. Labibi says, it's going to kill us. It's going to kill us. Baradwaj's like, calm down. It can't move. Labibi's like, it's probably observing us right now and plotting its next move. Second unit's like, I was, sort of. And she's like, no. She's like, fudge this. I'm out of here. Pinley's like, okay, so exactly what does this mean, Gura? Second unit's like, I'll tell you what this means. Either I'm dead or you're dead. But he's like, it doesn't have to follow our commands. We have no control over its behavior. I shared all of my data with Baradwaj. And she agrees with me completely. And he's like, Baradwaj, after all I did for you. But Baradwaj, she's like, I don't agree with Garathan. And Sekun's like, ha! Or he thinks that. So the Mensa's like, the governor module isn't working then? And Baradwaj's like, no, it's definitely hacked. It's a free agent, a rogue, as they say. But it's acting to preserve our lives, to take care of us nonetheless. So all the more reason to trust it. And Garathan makes a face. Narada's like, isn't that what we objected to in the first place? Its lack of free will? And Mensa's like, absolutely. Garathan's like, free will to do what exactly? We have been sabotaged since the moment we got here. The missing hazard reports, the missing pieces of the map, and I guarantee you the number one suspect, Sec Unit. And Sec Unit's like, so unfair. So Garathan's like, probably what happened to Deltfall. It's connected somehow. And Rathi's like, oh, BS. He's like, somebody is sabotaging us, sure, but Seki here had nothing to do with it. Seki Unit's like, Seki? Arata's like, it told us about the combat module. It told us to kill it. Why? Why would it do that if it wanted to hurt us? And Baradwaj's like, if the company wanted to order Sec Unit to kill us, we'd be dead by now. And the Sec Unit finally speaks, the company isn't trying to kill you. And his stupid Garathan, well, look who found its voice. You have some explaining to do. And Mensa's like, Sec Unit, how do you know that? And he's like, because if they wanted you dead, they would poison your supplies using the recycling system. The company has a financial interest in keeping you alive. The financial payments for your death would be extremely high. And Baradwaj's like, Garathan, tell them how it spends its time. That was originally concerning to you, right? And Garathan's like, it's downloaded thousands of hours of entertainment programming, mostly serials, mostly some show called Sanctuary Moon. And Penley's like, you don't know Sanctuary Moon? And Garathan's like, I don't watch that crap. It's probably using it to encode messages to send to the company. There's no way it watched that much without us noticing. And Rathi's like, hey, did you see the one to Sec Unit? He's like, did you see the one where the colony solicitor killed a terraforming supervisor who was a secondary doctor of her implanted baby? And Sec Unit's like, that's a damn lie. She didn't kill him. She was framed by bookkeeper Wittenmark, that little snake. And Rathi, excited, he's like, it's watching the show. And Pinley's like, that is literally such a deep cut. Rathi's like, so deep. And Sec Unit thinks he's like, season 19, episode 4. Garathan's like, anyways, it doesn't matter if we trust it. We just have to keep it immobilized. Sec Unit's like, that won't work. And he's like, oh yeah? And why is that? And then Sec Unit suddenly, out of the chair, across the room with his hand at Garathan's throat. He's like, and they're all yelling, stop, let him go. And Sec Unit's like, because I hacked the command flow from my hub system. Mensa's like, Sec Unit, let Garathan be, please. And he's like, I don't like you. And he lets go. Garathan, he's like, you see? And Sec Unit's like, I was done. They all back away as he walks past them. Mensa goes after him. She's like, as I understand it, you don't have to obey our orders or anybody's orders, but that has been the case the entire time we have been here. She looks at Garathan, and he doesn't say anything because it's true. She's like, I would like you to remain part of our group. Garathan kind of scoffs. And she's like, at least until we get off this planet and go to a place of safety. At that point, we can discuss what you would like to do. And I swear to you, I won't tell the company or anyone else outside this room anything about you or your hacked governor module. And Sec Unit's like, of course she had to say that. What else could she do? And he almost looks at her in the eyes for a second, but he doesn't make eye contact because he doesn't like it. And he's like, and I had said what I had to say. But then he's like, okay. Garathan's like, so that's it, huh? Whatever happened to consensus, Mensa? And she looks at Garathan. She's like, we'll reach it eventually. She's like, Sec Unit, I want you to promise me that you will protect Garathan as much as you protect the rest of us. Garathan's like, I don't need its protection. He's like, why? Hub system has seen all this. And without making eye contact, the Sec Unit's like, Hub system hasn't recorded any of this. I just fed it an hour of mundane activity from the logs. And Garathan gives like a look. He's like about to say something, but Sec Unit continues. Hub system may have been compromised by an outside agent. You cannot trust it. I suggest it's time to trigger the emergency beacon. And Mensa's like, yes, I agree. So he thinks, the Deltfall survivor kept looking at me strangely, like something out of the entertainment feeds. And he's like, stop staring at me. And she's like, what? I wasn't. Stop staring at me, stuck-up robot. And Mensa's like, Libibi, did Deltfall attempt to launch its beacon? And she's like, Deltfall? She's like, I don't know. They didn't tell me much. Baradwatch was like, that must have been so frustrating. What was your job at Deltfall? And she's like, I was mostly maintenance and cleaning, laundry. Rathi's like, they brought someone along to do laundry? And Pinley's like, disgusting. But Libibi's like, I'm on a 7-year indenture to Intertray Mining Solutions, so I can't help it if I don't have a degree. And Pinley's like, no, I don't think you're disgusting. I meant the whole corporation rim with the whole indentured servitude things. That's disgusting. And Baradwa, she was also talking at the same time. They were like trying to, backtrack, whatever. The others join in too. And Garathan just like closes his eyes and he's like, quiet, please. And Seki just like, oh, thank you. So Garathan's like, I can't reach the beacon. And Sec Unit thinks, he's like, neither could I. And that was bad news. So Mensa tells him to keep trying. Libibi asks, like, how does it work, the beacon? And Rathi's like, it launches into orbit and sends an EM pulse through the wormhole to summon help. In this case, to a colony starship. And she's like, well, how long does it take them to get here? And Rathi's like, 5 days usually. And she's like, 5 days? But what if whoever sent that thing to attack us at Deltfall finds out where we are? Baradwatch is like, Deltfall is like an ocean away, so we're good. You're safe here. And Garathan's like, signal's still not going through. So Sekin's like, I'll take the hopper to the beacon and set it off manually. Garathan's like, not on your own, you won't. We are not about to trust you with our hopper. Mensa is like, I'll go too. And Garathan is like, starts to object. She's like, I'm the best pilot. And she's like, I am. And she's like, everyone pack essentials, supplies for a week. And when we get back, I suggest that we moved into a more hidden area. This is the part. So she's telling everyone to pack. So then it's like, wait, is everyone going? But they're not. So I don't know what they're packing. So outside she continues. She's like, get any possessions you want to take with you together. So I guess, maybe she meant, so like when the rescue ship comes. So pack up your stuff. Okay. Because she's like, take any possession you want to take with you, but not too much. And she's like, we really have no idea how much the rescue ship can carry. Garathan's like, well, we weren't allowed to bring much in the first place anyways. And he's like, listen, do you really think that this is wise? And it's just like, oh my gosh, shut up. But Mensa's like, we don't have much of a choice, do we? Then Libibi goes up to Sec Unit since she has nothing to do. She's like, hey, how's it going? He doesn't answer her. And she's like, I just wanted to say that I've been talking to the team about you, and you do seem nice. And, well, I'm sorry that I said you were going to kill us. It's just that it was really hard to trust people sometimes. And he's like, why was she getting so close to me? And she's like, anyways, and she tries going like on her tippy toes to give him a kiss. And she ends up just like kissing his chin because he doesn't like move his head down. And she's like, that was just for luck or whatever. And she walks away. And he's like, melt me down now. So Mensa says to Garathan, she's like, if for some reason I don't make it back. And he's like, please don't say that. And she's like, if for some reason I don't make it back, then Pinley's first among equals. And he's like, got it. He's like, I'll analyze the data from the combat module overwrite and reboot hub system. Maybe figure out why the heck this is all happening. And she's like, thank you, Gura. I'm glad you are here. He's like, me too. I think that time to leave. Sekina just like comes right in. He's like, oh, come on. Because, they're like having a moment, but Sekina he's like, we should leave. And Mensa's like, yeah, okay. So then the two take off. So it's just the two of them leave. Inside, Libibi goes up to Garathan. Anything I can help you with? He's like, I highly doubt it. And she's like, well, I meant, do you want a stimulant or anything from the med kit? Crack it open. He's like, no. He's like, thank you. And he sits at the monitors. And she's like, what's all this data? And he's like, do you mind? And she's like, no problem. So at first I'm like, can Libibi be trusted? So on the hopper, Mensa's like, I mean, I'm so proud of how they have grown and how they are in the world. The youngest one especially, just makes my heart. And Sakina's like, for some reason, humans like talking about their offspring, even if you didn't ask. Mensa's like, I mean, not my favorite, of course. I love them all, and one day we'll be, and then he just interrupts. He's like, we're 2 minutes and 30 seconds to the beacon. And she looks at the screen and back to him. And she's like, you know what? If the company didn't kill the people at Deltfall, there has to be a third party involved. And he's like, yes. And Mensa's like, but how could they be here without the company knowing? And Sakina's like, the company wouldn't arrange to have you killed. Dead clients are terrible for their brand, but someone else might take money to conceal the existence of a third party on the planet. And she's like, why? He's like, because most humans are greedy bastards. And she's like, well, no argument there. So then he's like, it was weird talking back and forth in a way that wasn't just giving facts or receiving and confirming orders. They did it on the serials all the time. I just hadn't done it myself before. And Mensa's like, there was no sign of forced entry at Deltfall. Maybe they knew the people who came. Otherwise, why would they have let them in? And Sakina's like, you would do it. If another group of scientists showed up at the habitat so that they had just arrived on a planet and had an equipment failure, you would let them right in without asking any questions, even if I told you not to. Mensa's like, yeah, we can be a bit naive. That must be so frustrating. When they went to Deltfall, they told them they were us. The people at Deltfall thought they were helping us. His eyes flicked to her for a second. Yes. They pretended to be you so they could get in and kill everyone. It's what I would do. So they fly some more. Then she's like, that's the beacon. So Sakina's like, I'll try to launch it with a burst communication, maintain the distance. So there's this device perched on top of a mountain. He scans it. He's like, it's not working. We'll have to reboot it by hand. And she's like, can we do that? He's like, yes. Land close by. I'll plug in and start the sequence. He's like, be ready. We'll have 4 minutes to clear the area before the launch. And she's like, Sec Unit, I want to talk about what happened earlier with Garathan. Have you ever hurt a client before? His display shows a threat assessment at 87%. He's like, wait. She's like, we can talk about this. Turn the hopper around now. She starts to turn. The beacon explodes in a huge ball of flames. And it looks like the hopper got damaged by the fire burst. And that's where the episode ends. So it's like, what the heck is going on? Who is doing all this sabotage stuff? And I mean, I don't know. Either Labibi is clearly clueless and doesn't know anything, but I almost feel like there's something else. I don't know. I could be wrong, but yeah, that's that episode. So that's episode 5. I think there's 8 episodes. I could be wrong about that. So we'll see what happens next time. Okay, and now the first movie feature is The Life of Chuck. I am so happy I went to see this movie. I was going to go, Tuesday? Yeah, I was going to go Tuesday, but then I ended up having to watch my sister-in-law's, all their pets and stuff like that. So then Wednesday I went into work. And then I was like, well, I got so much work to do, but I was like, well, but I'll just go see the movie anyways. So I went to see it. So the interesting thing, it's a Stephen King story. And I always preface that because whenever you say it's a Stephen King story, people are like, oh, it's a horror, it's Cujo, it's a Shining, it's Carrie, something like that. But what I always say is it's not horror. And I was like, Stephen King he doesn't really write horror stories anymore. He writes stories, and a lot of them, are very compelling, very interesting. So they're not whatever. What is this creature, hiding in the shadows or whatever? He's evolved as a writer. He's told a lot of horror stories, but it's so much more than that. One book is I think it's called Fairy Tale. It's interesting what he does, and he tells a lot of stories. Just about people, and there's all the Holly Gibney stories that he does. He's been working on those. He's got a lot that he does, and it's definitely interesting. Now, also this screenplay is written by Mike Flanagan, and Mike Flanagan, he does a lot of horror stuff too. He did the House on Haunting Hill, and there's that like religious on an island. So he does some dark stuff. This movie is absolutely not dark. And this movie is like the opposite of horror. So it is a Stephen King story. Oh, and I think I got sidetracked before. I'm going to be all over the place with this. So this is a short story from Stephen King. I know I must have listened to it. I don't remember when it was, because I think it might have come out. I don't know if he wrote it in 2020 or came out around then. But I must have listened to it and completely forgot what it was about. And I'm so thankful that I forgot what it was about, because as I'm watching this, I was like just captivated. I was like so pulled in, and I didn't really know what the movie is about. And I strongly encourage you to see this movie. Watch it if you get the opportunity before it's out of theaters. It's not a movie that needs to be seen on the big screen, but I feel like you should just sit in a dark theater and just get immersed in everything. But it's not crucial for it. The thing is, if you're not going to see it in the theaters, it's probably going to be a while till it's available streaming anywhere. I don't even know who would possibly stream it, because usually these days, as soon as movies open, they're available for pre-order, like on 4K. And there's no pre-order for this yet. It's Neon. It's a smaller studio. Whoever's distributing it, releasing it. So I don't know when it's going to be available, and it might be later rather than sooner. So you should definitely see it. But what I highly encourage is, don't seek out spoilers like what this is about, because I really didn't know anything about this. All I knew, it was Stephen King, Mike Flanagan, and Tom Hiddleston was in this. And there's other actors involved with this. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Someday I need to learn how to say his name. He is just such a good actor, and he was great in this. Karen Gillan was in it. Mark Hamill. It's just, yeah. And did I mention Tom Hiddleston? We all know Tom Hiddleston's a great actor, but he was really good. Heather Langenkamp is in this. Oh, Matthew Lillard. Oh, just seeing I don't know what it is about Matthew Lillard. Maybe because he's such a super nice guy. I'm so glad I get to like sit at a table and just like talk to him and just hear him talk. And of course, like, this is Shaggy, but he's done so much more than just being Shaggy. He's from Scream, and just seeing him here. He doesn't have a big role in the movie. I don't even know if he has like a name. I think he's just Neighbor. But just seeing him, it's just I don't know. And when you see it in the previews, whatever, just it just really touches me. Carl Lumbly is in this. Kate Siegel, Mike Flanagan's wife, right? There's just so many people in this movie. I don't know what more to say. I could just sit here. Mia Sara is in this movie, and when was the last time she acted? Didn't she like kind of retire from acting? Oh my goodness. So it's definitely worth seeing. And so going back to when I was watching this, I didn't remember anything what this was about. All I will say, because this isn't really spoiler, but it kind of is told. It starts with Act 3, and then it goes Act 2, and so you see the story backwards. But I think that's just it's great to see that. And when you first, even though when you're watching Act 3, you just get so like what is going on? And other movies have done this before, so it's not like this is the most original thing or whatever. But they use it really well here, and it's not something that should be done. I think you have to be really careful with that. So when it starts in Act 3, and you're just like, holy crap, like wow, what's going on? It's like, I thought this was supposed to be like an uplifting movie, and it just really makes you think, and you start seeing like what's going on. It's like, oh man. And you just start to imagine, like, is this where we're going? And then then it goes Act 2 and Act 1, and I really don't want to spoil what this is about, but it just, for some reason, and there are times, I feel like my emotions are like kind of like all over the place, just different things going on. And I am by no means going to pretend that everything is perfect, because I think we all go through stuff, and while I share a lot, I'm not sharing everything, because one, I don't think people necessarily want to hear about that or care to hear about that. We all have our own stuff. You don't need to hear about my ups and downs or whatever. But as I just watch, it's like, and because I've been like watching all these like sponsored. I finally started following the Instagram account, but there would be like a sponsored post, like buy tickets now, and I would just watch these clips and like, and I would share with the friends. I was like, yeah, you need to see this movie. I'm trying to convince some people, but they're like, but I don't really go to movies because work and family. It's just so hard to get there. But I was just like, man, it's such a, I'm gonna get emotional, but no, I mean seriously, it's such like a beautiful movie, just about I mean life. It's so I don't like I said, I don't want to spoil it, and I don't know if this is just gonna come across as annoying, just how I'm just like not really saying anything, but it's just like such a good feeling. And as I watch this, watch the little clips that come up, I start getting emotional and just thinking about it, and it's like I definitely want to see it again. And like one of the things are like, see it with someone you love, and so it's just such a, I don't know what it is about the movie. Now, this is just me saying this. A Rotten Tomato, we got these grumpy old critics, 81% critics, 87% popcorn meter. So that's the audience. And, it's just, so take that with what, however much, stock you put that. But it's just so good. And like I said, I need to see this again. I am really, really hoping that a steelbook is released for this. I mention this all the time. I'm a sucker for steelbooks. I don't buy I only buy movies that I really like, that I know I'm going to want to watch again. And it's silly, I'm spending extra 10, sometimes more, just for the steelbook, but there's something about it. And if I just buy like a regular like 4K copy, I don't know, it feels kind of cheap. It's just like, oh, it's just in a plastic case. Ew. But I know that's silly, but sometimes it's like if there's not a 4K, then I'm like, maybe I'll buy it someday or eventually. I'm like not in a rush, and I think that might be part of it with the steelbook, because steelbooks are more limited. They're not like rare limited editions, but the studios aren't going to make as many because it's a higher cost, and they don't want to get stuck with this. Stores don't want to get stuck with it. So these days, it's like such a gamble. Like a lot of times, steelbooks will sell out. Like Sinners. I was okay with the movie Sinners, but now it's like you can't buy the steel. It's sold out like that, and it might just be people like scalpers, buying it and trying to like flip them, which sucks. I mean, like just the other day, I saw on Reddit, they're like, steelbook is available again, and then like within an hour it was sold out. But with this, I really, really hope that they make a steelbook for this, and I don't know what the chances are, because I'm not sure if Neon does a lot of steelbooks, or if any. Some studios just kind of don't. But it's just such a great movie, and there's a chance you might watch it and you're like, what? I mean, what's all the fuss about? But I don't know. I just, where I'm at now, I just really enjoyed this movie. I just thought it was just really like positive and upbeat, and like I said, you just get. I got sucked into just like who is Chuck, and just watching everything play out. So I definitely think you should watch it. I'm glad that my theater had it, because when I first heard it, I kind of saw this, and I don't think they had like a Thursday night showing, and it's it didn't play like in one of the big theaters, so I don't think there's a lot of demand for it. I mean, I don't know what people are expecting or thinking about it. Okay, so it looks like the movie had a $5 million budget, and as of now, it's made like 4.7 million in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks almost. So what? This came out June 6th. Yeah. So, well, it came out June 6th. I'm looking at Box Office Mojo, and I'm on. I'm like on a slightly different page. I don't visit often. It looks like it opened with 125,000, but I don't think it opened wide. So I'm trying to see, because usually they tell you like how many screens. Because then on June 13th, it must have opened wider because it had a 7,947.8% increase from the previous week, and it made 1.4 million that week. And then, no, that was on Friday. It made 1.4 million. On Saturday, June 14th, it made 2 million. And then Sunday, 2.6 million. Monday the 16th, 2.8 million. Tuesday the 17th, 3.1. And then Wednesday is when I saw it. It made 3. No, that's the total. I take that back. That's the to date it made. Yeah, it wasn't making that much each day. So the to date on June 18th, it was at 3.395. And now apparently it's at worldwide 4 million. So I mean, it's not necessarily going to be like a smash, but I don't know how much. Yeah, I don't know how much like promotion went into it. I hope it does well, because it's and I've probably been going on about this way too long, but it's an amazing movie. I highly recommend it. Some people might be like, eh. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, but I loved it. So, Life of Chuck, definitely watch it. I need to see it again. Okay, and now the final movie feature is 28 years later. We finally made it, which is interesting. So the first movie, 28 Days Later, came out 2002. So it hasn't actually been 28 years, which it would have been clever if they did that, but whatever, we don't have to wait for that. So yeah, 2002 was 28 Days Later, and then 5 years later, 2007 was 28 weeks later. So here's the interesting thing, because I remember when the first movie came out. I don't remember if I saw it in theaters. I have it on DVD, so I did see it back then. And when it first came out, it was this interesting little movie. It was I felt like it was a low budget movie, and whether it was or not, I'm not sure. So it made the budget was $8 million, and it looks like it ended up making $82.8 million. So that's crazy. And I guess there was a comic book series. I vaguely remember that. I don't think I was reading that. Yeah, so it had Cillian Murphy was the lead, and Christopher Eccleston was in it. And so this was directed by Danny Boyle, and Alex Garland wrote the movie. And so when it first came out, I mean, it was something. I'm trying to think back, because they're not necessarily zombies. You think of this like oh, it's a zombie movie, but they're not really zombies. They are, but they're not. It has to do more with just their rage just like takes over, and then they become infected. So usually when I've been talking about so I'm reading it here. Danny, despite Boyle not considering it a zombie film, it's credited with revigorating the genre. Yeah, so I've been calling them infected whenever I've been telling people. It's like, oh, yeah, this happens or whatever. So I just remember when it came out, and I think at that point, I don't think I really knew who Cillian Murphy was. He had, maybe, I don't remember if I saw it at Red Eye Movie, because I feel like that's the first time I. But anyways, we had this interesting little movie, and it was really good. Then 2007. So this is the weird thing. So 5 years later, they made a sequel, and for the life of me, and I'm shocked by this. This is my confession of the week. I don't think I saw 28 months later, and I find that really hard to believe, especially if there was a comic made out of it. So 2007, that was the first year really of Comic Vine, because Comic Vine started December. We launched December 2006, so 2007 when this came out. See, it was June. Yeah, June June 27th. So 2007. Yeah, I'm just shocked that I didn't go see this. I'm not, and the reason I'm sure I didn't see it because I just like I mentioned, I think at the beginning of the show, that I watched the two movies. I rewatched the first one, and then I don't know if I rewatched the second or just watched the second. And when I watched it, I didn't remember it because I'm like, holy crap! I'm like, Rose Byrne is in it. Idris Elba's in this. Jeremy Renner's in this, and I'm like, because the first time I remember Jeremy Renner was in Hurt Locker. I was like, all these people in this movie, Robert Carlyle, and it's like, how do I not remember anything about this? So watching the two movies, and then when we, so the first movie, it was kind of, I would say, sort of contained, it was. I don't necessarily want to say it was simple, but it did a lot for like a little. Then 5 years later, they make 28 months later, or 28 weeks later, right? I'm confusing myself. And that budget was $15 million, and it only made $65 million, so it went down. And this one was. Oh, see, maybe that explains some things. So it wasn't. Wait, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, they weren't involved. That explains a lot now, because as I watched this movie, I did not like it. The weird thing is, and again, I apologize for being all over the place, but I think maybe I'm like too comfortable. I'm not normally like sitting back like this when I record. I'm just sitting back, just having conversation with you. So I was like, I should rewatch these movies again. So I look, 28 Days Later is not streaming anywhere. I mean, you could rent it or buy it digitally, but it's like, I don't want to do that necessarily. But I was like, I know I have it on DVD. And what it was is I think I saw it. So I knew specifically where it was. Because some of my movies are like in weird places, like they're not all in one place, and like the DVDs, that's like I have a bunch of stuff on VHS still. I still have my VHS, but they're not super easily accessible. I could get to them if I needed to, but it would be kind of a pain. So I was like, well, I'm not gonna pay to see it. So I was like, I got the DVD. I watched that. So I watched it. It was fine. And then 28 weeks later is streaming on Hulu, because when I first saw it, I was like 20th Century Fox. I was like, why aren't these on Hulu? But they had the second one, but not the first, and whatever, some streaming legal rights, I'm sure. So this one definitely has a different feel, and I didn't really like it so much. So in the second one, they figure out, it starts off with Robert Carlyle, being in this little cottage with his wife and some other people that they. Oh, and the thing is, what I didn't mention this before, but what's different about these, and whether this was unique at the time, But rather than the slow lumbering zombies, these guys run at you. And I think we had that when Return of the Living Dead, one of the other zombie movies, we had that. So that just made a whole different thing, because it's not like, oh, they're just moving slowly, I can jog and get away. They come running at you, and because they're so filled with rage, that's that makes it worse. And then it's not like they just have to bite you; they just have to like spit the blood and get that in you. Like if you ingest it or somehow, I guess it breaks your skin, then you're done. So it's really gross. So we have this movie, and then what I take away from the movie, and I'm going to spoil some things. Robert Carlyle's character was a piece of crap, because they're trapped in this house. They're infected are coming in, so they're scrambling upstairs, because where else are you going to go? Then finally, like, he's in this room, and his wife is kind of like stuck, and he's looking, and he just like leaves her, and he goes out this other door, closes the door, and she's looking at him like, dude, help me. And he's just like, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do, which is true, because if he would have gone in there, he would be dead too. And so it's horrible. But what are you supposed to do? There's really nothing. He has no weapons, no way to stop him. He could try fighting him off, but there's more coming, so they would probably just get outnumbered. I don't know. It sucks. So he runs out of the house. He goes out. I think he went out the window or something like that. She's like screaming, calling him. He runs through a field, runs, goes to like a river. There's a dude sitting on a dock. He's like, we gotta go. He gets in the boat. The other guy's untying the rope. More infected are coming. The guy falls in the water instead of trying to get in. He's like, come on, and then he gets, so that guy dies too. So it's like, way to go, Robert Carlyle. Now he's gone too, and he escapes in the boat. Then what we find out, he somehow makes it back to civilization, because then in London they're rebuilding the city, and I guess the infected, enough time had passed, and whether this was 28 weeks, where the infected, they died of starvation because there was nothing for them to eat. So that's kind of clever. That makes sense, because they don't eat each other necessarily. They're starting to bring people in. I guess the U.S. military was overseeing things, even though it's in London. And then what happens is Robert Carlyle, he has two kids, and one is what's her name, Imogen Poots. So he has a daughter and a son. They come, so he's reunited, and then he tells them, it's like, yeah, he has to explain, their mother died, and but he doesn't tell the truth. This is way too long to talk about the third movie. And then, so the kids, the boys, one time he's like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to forget what mom looks like. And she's like, no, you're not. And they're like, well, can't we just go over to the house? Because it's not that far from where they're at. But even though it's like the outskirts are like closed off, they sneak out, they go to the house, they find mom's there. Mom is alive. She didn't die. So Robert Carlyle left her there. And she was kind of like not talking. And because, how long has she been sitting there hiding, trying to survive? The kids come out, they had been followed, so, they get extracted out of there. And then the mom, I'm spoiling this part of two, the second one. So, she's in the hospital, they're looking at her. It turns out she's infected, but she's not, or she's carrying it, but she's not infected by it. So she's like a carrier. So that means there must be something in her genes that where she's carrying the infection, but she's not affected by it. Didn't turn her. So then stupid Robert Carlyle's character, I forget his character's name. It's nothing against Robert Carlyle. His character sucked. He goes in there, talks to her, and he's like apologizing to her. He's like, I thought, there was anything to do. And let's try to make it better, where he felt he had to get out so they can get back to their kids somehow. Maybe. I doubt it. So then while she's strapped to this table, he starts kissing her, which is like, there's no consent because she's not even talking. She's just staring at him. She's like, has no idea what's going on. And then she like starts like biting his mouth or whatever. And then she infects him. And it's like, oh, you are such an idiot. And then what's he do? Then he kills her. And then from there, it just spreads. And the whole thing, kids have to try to get out. And in Roseburn, she's like, oh, but the kids could have, a cure. It could be something. And it just goes from there. But then that movie doesn't make sense. And at one point, they're like, okay, just kill everyone. We can't just only, target them. There's too many. We got to contain it. But it's like, you could just leave them. The infected are going to start, and that won't be a problem. So it's just, the movie was like a mess. And just the fact that Robert Carlyle, the zombie infected, he was like, wait, you're here. How do you find, he then later, it's another reunion with the kids. It's like, how the heck did you find him? So I didn't really like the second one so much. So then we got 28 years later. So now we're back with Alex Garland writing and Danny Boyle directing. And this was this was interesting. Cillian Murphy was also an executive producer, so that's cool. I don't. What does it exactly that mean? I don't need to know. What I wasn't aware of, and I guess people might know this movie was shot back to back with another. There's going to be another 28 years later, The Bone Temple, but this one is going to be directed by Nia DaCosta. But it is written by Alex Garland. What is weird about this, and maybe it's because Alex Garland didn't write the second one, but it's 28 years later and they're still infected people. So they didn't starve, but what was interesting and what I like about this movie, so I'm going to be honest, I didn't love this movie. I feel like it was a little unbalanced. There's some cool moments, but then there's also some, I feel like they touch on some interesting things and they kind of introduce some new topic, which I don't want to, it's not really a huge groundbreaking, but I don't want to spoil. There's at least there's a couple things. Maybe I'll talk about some, but what's interesting here is basically it's taking place in it's in Great Britain. All of Great Britain is under quarantine, which is interesting when you see that the first movie, it was all contained there. It was the U.S. military in the second. They come to kind of oversee things because you would think the British Army, whatever, they're not capable because all the infected are there. You get a hint that the rest of the world might be business as usual, but here it's 28 years later, and we see this this little community. They've been living in here because there's this little kid Spike who's kind of the main part of the movie, and he ends up running into someone else from a different country who is in the Navy or something like that in his country, and his ship goes down, and he ends up. That's where they run into each other. And one of the things he's like, yeah, my friend is a delivery guy. And Spike's like, what? What's that? And, because there's a lot of basic things he doesn't know about because you don't have that when you're living in a simple, non-whatever updated village. Yeah, we don't have the infected starving off. But then we have another thing. Well, I'll get to this next thing, and what I will say is the movie starts off with this kid Jimmy, and it's probably at the beginning of the infection, or it might be even the time the second whatever outbreak. There's this kid. I don't know if I mentioned this kid Jimmy. You see his whatever introduction to the infected and all that. How that basically destroys his world or whatever. And then it's what happens to him? Because then it jumps to 28 years later Yeah, because I guess it's 28 years after the second outbreak, and then here you got this guy Jamie. So it's not Jimmy. So we have Jamie, who is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and they live in this village, and Jamie, Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's going to take Spike, his 12-year-old son, outside the community because there's what do you call it? There's like a landmass that there's a way like you can walk to the mainland when it's low tide, and so they're going to go out there because he wants them to experience like his first kill and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, why are you going out there and risking it? But I guess, so he can just be ready just in case and, learn and be educated and stuff like that. It just seems like it's a big risk. So they go out there and his mom, she's like kind of bedridden and there's something wrong with this mom, but they don't really know what because they don't have like an actual doctor. They don't have hospital equipments and everything like that. But little Spike, he's concerned for his mom and everything. So they go out there and it's Spike's first time out there and he's seeing how big the world is and everything like that. And they go out there with like bow and arrows. We see like different versions of infected because, like I said, 28 years later, things have kind of evolved. Things have kind of changed a little bit. One thing, I don't know if it's a spoiler. I mean, it's not, but basically because they've changed, there's been like mutations in the virus, the rage virus. And now some of them are become alphas where they're not like your regular infected, and the alphas are kind of scary. You have all these like naked infected, like dirty people like running at you, wanting to eat you and kill you, and everything. And then you got these alphas who are even scarier. So so that's one of the new things that happens. There's like another new development, which I was like, oh, that's interesting. What I'll say is, when you watch the movie, if you haven't watched it yet, it's something happens on a train car, and that's where it's like, okay, that needs to be. I don't know if that'll be explored in the next movie or not. Yeah, we have that. Yeah, I know I've spoiled a lot, but things kind of go from there. They make it back. So what it is? I mean, I think you see it in the preview, in the trailer. What was interesting is, so basically, Spike and his dad. This is not your normal episode. I'm just rambling on. I feel, but it makes the show longer, right? Spike gets word of he sees like some fire in the distance, and his dad's like, "Yeah, that's the old crazy Doc, Kelson or whatever." And Spike's like, "Wait, there's a doctor there, so he can help mom." And Jamie's like, "No, whatever. That's just a myth. I don't even know." So basically, Spike wants to find this guy. So the doctor's played by Ralph Fiennes. When I saw the trailer, I didn't watch it super carefully, partly because it's like, one, I don't need to see a trailer. I'm going to watch the movie. And two, it's like, I don't want to get spoiled by anything. So when I kind of saw the trailer, I was so certain that it was John Locke, because you just see this bald guy. He's got like some stuff on him, which they explain in the movie. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? That's another like development for the movie. What the doctor does to himself type of thing, what he covers himself with. So when he first comes on, I was like, that's not John Locke. I forget the actor's name from John Locke from Lost. So I was like, wait, that's Ralph. Because stupid me, I didn't even realize he was in this movie. I thought it was John Locke going to show up. I was like, oh, what has he done lately? I haven't seen him. Yeah, and the third part of the movie, it's weird because it kind of goes in this different direction, and then it was like, that's it, and it's like, wait, what does this mean? What does that stuff mean? Why does the doctor have all this stuff? And like, what is he? It's just okay, symbolism. What? And then blah blah blah. Things progress, and there's a conclusion of it. But then there's like this like epilogue sort of part, like, and then this I don't even want to hint at what it is. So then like something else happens at the end, and it's just like, wait, now you're introducing blank. You're this. It's like, what does this mean? Where is this going? And then and it's just it's kind of weird. Like when you see it, it's like, wait, what? What? Like what is happening here? Because it's like such a different vibe from everything else that's happening in the movie. And I guess this is going to go into the Bone Temple, which, I mean, if you look at the poster, I would think like what's on one of the main posters that's the Bone Temple, but maybe it's not. Because maybe if the next movie is called the Bone Temple, I'm assuming the next movie is going to deal with what pops up at the end of this movie. So it's just, and it's weird, and it's kind of annoying in a way. I get when you want to set up a sequel, you want to leave with a cliffhanger, but then with that almost makes it like, well, this isn't a complete movie because it just ends there and we don't really get any answers. So now if we want to know, we have to watch the next one. But that's kind of the point. And most likely if you watch this movie, you're going to want to see the next one. But it was just like a weird way to end the movie, because this movie, you don't have to have seen the second one. You don't have to have seen the first one. You can go into this and understand what's going on. So the movie's not even entirely self-contained because of the way it ends, which is just like, it's like, okay. Yeah, I mean, I will say though, while this movie is kind of scaled back in a way, so even though you see the mainland, you see all the wilderness and everything like that, and it's gorgeous, it's amazing, just so lush. It does feel like it's scaled back from the second one, because it's the second one, there's way too large of a cast, way too much stuff going on, and the second one, it kind of, I hate to say it, it kind of felt a little generic, and there was really nothing. But and the other interesting thing, when I was looking on IMDb, like I was like, man, that Robert Carlyle character, he sucked, but in the IMDb reviews, everyone is blaming the kids. And it's like, yeah, the kids go to the house and find her mom, but no, it's like, it was Robert Carlyle making out with this wife who's strapped and almost like incoherent, and he starts making out with her. He's the one that caused all the kerfuffle in the second movie, not the kids. But yeah, so this one is definitely back on track. The second one, even though it was big and ambitious, I didn't really care for it, but this one is just way better. I also think it's only like with Jeremy Renner's character, he does one thing, he's just like quickly turns like, okay, I'm switching allegiances type of thing, whatever. So this is a good movie. I just didn't love it myself personally. It just felt, I don't know, I'm not really sure what I expected. It's interesting to see like where the world is, and I'm more curious, like I want to know like how is the outside world perceive this, because like what this other guy said to Spike, he's like, as soon as you set foot on this island, it's like you are in the quarantine, you don't go out. So again, is it like if we're living our lives now, but knowing that all of Great Britain, there's like zombies there, even though they're not zombies, they're infected, but it's just this whole island where there are people surviving there, but we're not going to do anything to help them because we can't, because we're not going there, we're just going to look the other way. That just seems weird. So yeah, with that, there's some fascinating ideas, and just like what is happening in this world. And so with that, I do kind of welcome a sequel coming out, and I think it's coming out January. Let's see if I can find out. It's supposed to come out, January 16th, 2026. so we won't have to wait that long. And it does look like, I'm looking at the IMDb page, so it does look like Aaron Taylor Johnson is back. Oh, interesting. I just saw something. I'm not going to spoil that. Okay, so now, it's just seeing something. It's like, I definitely want to see the next one. So, we'll see. So that was 28 years later. But we never had 28 months? We had 28 days, 28 weeks, and we're just skipping the years? I guess. Nothing interesting happened between. That is going to be it for this week. I've rambled on. I don't even know how long I've talked about these movies. But Life of Chuck, I love that movie. 28 years later, it was fine. Way better than the second one. Worth watching if you've seen the other ones and are invested in that. And like I said, even if you haven't seen the other ones, you can watch it. So that is going to be it. Thank you for listening. Big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is an awesome, super duper supporter. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, did I say that? You would get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. Currently talking about The Hobgoblin. I might take a pause in maybe 2 weeks and then come back to Hobgoblin. We'll see. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out. I'm going to do something else in that week, not just skip or something. But if you can't commit, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 4. And it's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. Another way to support, if you don't want to commit to like a monthly whatever Patreon tier, you can also go to patreon.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy some of like the random off of my mind topics. And I have them set for like the $3 amount. If you download the iOS app, there's going to be like 15%, 10% markup, whatever the Apple charges. So if you go online, you can avoid that, and you can just purchase the episode. If there's a certain topic that you think, so you're not just buying a coffee, you're not just giving, you're getting something out of it too. So, and every little bit helps. With that, next week, and I think I started mentioning this earlier, but I must not have finished my thought. I'm kind of wondering if more people are just interested in movies and not necessarily the TV shows. So I don't know. I can't remember if we have other shows starting up this week. Yeah, so I think next week. Yeah, that's kind of the bummer. I think next week we have Ironheart and Squid Game, but we also have F1, Brad Pitt movie, and we also have Megan 2.0. So that's going to be a busy week for me, I think, because I might see both movies. The following week, I'm trying to think because I'll do Megan next week, or I might save it for the following week. Because let's see, the following week will be Jurassic World Rebirth. So we'll see. So next week, definitely F1, the movie. Maybe Megan 2.0, or Megan 2.0 might be the following week. We'll see. But I'm definitely going to see that. And with that, I hope you are doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're not sick or whatever I have going on. Hope you're taking care of yourself. Hope you're doing fun things. I hope you go see The Life of Chuck, and I hope you love it if you do see it. And I hope you remember, be good to each other.